everyone? Welcome to the Metalcore podcast. I'm your host, Sean Mott. On today's episode, we have Nick Chance from Distinguisher, and we discuss the Captain America Trilogy, which includes The First Avenger, The Winter Soldier, and Civil War. There's not really much news today, so we're going to get right into this conversation with Nick Chance. Chance, what's up, my man?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm good. It's finally nice in upstate New York, so I can't complain that much.
Is it a bit like kind of crappy weather up there?
The past couple weeks, it's been nice. Like, started to actually get nice. It's like 70s and everything. But a couple weeks ago, it snowed. So.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah. So I'm glad there's some nice weather. Sam and I have been riding bikes and getting outside and shit like that.
Cool.
So.
Love that. It's weird that it's snowing like so late in spring.
Yeah, I was not stoked, and it was like 70 like days before too. It was like 70, and then 2 days later, snow. I was like, cool, great.
Yeah. Love that.
How have you been doing? How has this whole pandemic affected your life?
Man, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I'm stuck in my house in Alabama. I don't really like being stuck for this amount of time. Like. Right normally, but with all of the pandemic, the COVID-19 and everything, like I haven't even been able to go to Vegas to see any of my boys recently.
Right.
And that's just been a huge bummer. So we've literally just been FaceTiming each other almost every day just to stay in contact because it sucks.
Right. Yeah, I know it's hard that you live so far away from the rest of the band and everything.
It's not fun. Like, situations like this, but we're definitely making it work.
Yeah, of course,
as best as we can. And it's honestly like everything that we've been working on has slowly started to come together, and it's really exciting to see how everything is starting to pan out.
Good. I'm glad. I'm stoked for new Distinguisher for sure.
Oh, it's nutty. Like, great.
I bet you guys are all insane musicians, so I don't doubt it at all.
Thank you. I know Bearden and Jake and Brad will take huge compliments to that.
Oh yeah, Jake is the most fucking nutcase drummer alive.
He's a basket case,
dude. He's just posting those covers. I was listening to one, and Sam was in the room. She's like, "Who is that drumming?" And I go, "Jake from Distinguisher. He's a fucking madman."
Was it his Watermelon Sugar?
It was the one he just posted.
Oh, okay. Dude, he snapped on that one, especially. Was just going off for no reason.
I mean, every few months, that crazy drum sequence from that, I don't remember what song it is, but that that crazy drum sequence always pops up on everyone's timeline.
Oh, where he does a little like chest pump thing where he's like,
oh yeah,
on everything. I'm like, dude,
yeah,
you're flexing way too hard. Please stop.
Yes.
Actually, I don't want him to ever stop. Ever.
No, he can't. He won't. I don't think anyway.
No, like he can never stop. And like I thought that I was kind of a crazy drummer, but being in a band with him as my drummer is literally the most insane thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're always kind of surrounded by really good drummers because obviously we were talking about before this. We met. We can't remember which. You say it's Warped Tour. It probably was Warped Tour a few years ago, but since you do content for Born Anew, you know, you're always surrounded by Tyler too, and that dude is even seeing him come from when I first saw them till now it's like night and day because that dude is so fucking solid.
He devotes so much time to just like getting better at his craft. It's inspiring, dude. Like I love watching him play, and I just love watching him grow as like a musician and a drummer. And I remember the very first time I saw them, like I booked Born Anew and Sustenance when they came through Birmingham at the High Note in 2017, I think, late 2016, back when that venue still existed. And he was playing that old Truth kit, like the Mac Rider Truth kit. He was nuts back then. That was when they still played Gift live.
Yeah, and he's way better now. I mean, all of them are way better now.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to them about on their episodes. Watching them evolve over the years has been gnarly.
It's been a while and watching them like come into their own the past couple of years. I love all those guys. my best friends for sure.
Yeah, great people.
Yes, like I don't know. I can't say enough good things about that band.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
I have,
you spent a lot of time with them.
yeah. I mean, I also have seen them literally just cover each other's necks in the van, and that's
That's fair.
legitimately terrifying.
Oh yeah.
I would never fuck with Toast ever.
Nah, he's the real deal.
Oh, oh yeah, dude. There was one time I can't remember what tour. I think it was Fight Riffs 3, but a couple months before I joined Distinguisher, and we were in California, and this dude cuts him off while we were driving to like do our laundry that night, and he like just like flips him off at the window. The dude pulls up next to us and was like talking mad shit, and he was like, Chance, just like don't pay attention to him, like he's not gonna do shit. I was
He's
like,
awesome.
okay, dude, if you say so. Dude, watching him yell at people, watching Chip yell at people out the window of the van is a treat.
Oh, Chip is something else.
Dude, he's nuts. I love him to death.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I pick on him the most, but it's because I love him.
Dude, hearing Toast and just roast Pinder in the back, like while he's sitting on the back bench is my favorite thing.
Yeah, they are really good at roasting each other. I think that's why I love them so much because they're like the same as me. We'll all just roast each other. It's great.
They just pick at each other all the time. It's so
Yeah.
sick. And Pinder just sits there and takes it, dude.
He does. Yeah, he's just like whatever.
Whatever. He sits there and drinks his like Monster Energy drink and eats his granola bar. It's like whatever.
Oh,
that man has the most unbalanced diet out of anybody I've known.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, a lot of tour musicians do. It's
yeah.
it's kind of alarming, but
I mean, our diets aren't ever really good unless you actually take the time to like meticulously plan shit out. But I don't have time or energy for that.
No, it's hard. It's possible, but it's hard. That's for sure.
It's very doable, but I don't have the patience for it. I'm just like, give me a Taco Bell cheesy bean and rice burrito and let me go the fuck to bed.
Yeah, that is the easy route for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, they slap the spicy potato soft tacos. They definitely hit.
So on to comic stuff. What got you into either comics, if you read comics, or comic book movies, or the TV shows, or whatever? What brought you into this world?
I used to watch a lot of the Spider-Man and Batman, X-Men cartoons like growing up, like on like CW21, like it's just like ABC, like Saturday morning cartoons and stuff like that. Watching X-Men and Spider-Man and all that stuff is kind of what like got me sucked into the Marvel universe.
Yep.
But I also used to read a fair amount of the Star Wars Dark Horse comics when I was younger.
Ooh.
And I need to go back and revisit them because my memory does blank a lot on that particular area, but I was immersed in that whole realm for a hot minute.
Yeah. That's a big world with well, it's weird now because a lot of those old comics and old books
they've just been relegated to the expanded universe.
Yeah, they're not even canon. They're just like, yeah, they happened. Well, mostly because they're retelling it now, so I mean, it makes sense. But
there was
so many
so much content for them to pick from. Like, you don't have to retell the story.
No, yeah, I know. They're doing a good job of it. I mean, Starkiller Base was from a book. They just changed it dramatically and stuff like that. And it seems like stuff they're doing in The Mandalorian is going to take some stuff from the books as well.
I really enjoy what they've been doing with The Mandalorian, and I'm very excited for season 2.
Yeah, all the shit they've announced for season 2. Well, Disney hasn't announced it, but it's leaked through whatever.
Yes.
That's like the biggest thing because so many people are like, "Why would Disney leak this?" And I was like, "Disney hasn't confirmed any of this shit." I was like,
they're just letting people like gesticulate rumors,
yeah. I mean, legit news sources are reporting it, so they probably are true. It's just probably with people within the scenes leaking it because obviously there's not much movie news right now. You know what I mean?
No, not right now.
There is some stuff, so they're probably like hitting up people they know in the industry or involved and like, yo, I won't mention your name, just like let me know.
What can you tell me right now?
Yeah. So I think that's why all these big ass announcements are coming out because Disney's been pretty close to the vest with their big stuff about keeping everything, tight.
They're usually really good about playing everything close to the best anyway.
Yeah,
Like
they kept fucking Baby Yoda a secret. That's insane.
that's nuts.
Yeah, insane. Like, so yeah,
I'm to
that's
see
what.
where they go with the Kenobi movie and everything.
Same, yeah. I know it got pushed back a little bit before the whole pandemic thing anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything's affecting it because they weren't going to plan on filming until like next year anyway. But yeah, that's going to be
Ewan
really cool.
McGregor is coming back as Kenobi, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like between Rebels, what happened in Rebels and New Hope,
Okay, cool.
I think. I think it's after Rebels.
Mm.
But yeah, it's
I never watched Rebels, and I still haven't finished the Clone Wars animated series. To be
yeah,
honest,
I'm
I
like
feel like a
halfway.
failure.
No, dude, I haven't watched Rebels either just because I just started Clone Wars a few months ago. I'm like halfway in. So I'm waiting to finish that and then I'll dive into Rebels because I know it's stuff correlates with each other. So I
Oh
don't
yeah,
want to jump the gun on one before I finish the other.
exactly. I've heard a lot of really good talk about like especially the later seasons of the newer Clone Wars series. I'm just personally
Yeah.
biased to the Genndy Tartakovsky 2003 series that he did.
Oh, the super limited one that's like the Samurai Jack animated shit.
Yes,
Yeah. My friend
dude.
was telling me about it and said it was so sick. And I was like, dude, I've never even heard of this.
You
This looks
like
amazing.
you can watch it on YouTube. Like they have the full series in like a 1 2.5 hour long video.
Yeah. So I was gonna say it's only a few episodes, right? It's like 8 episodes or
It's
something.
they're all like micro episodes. Like
Yeah.
when it was airing like weekly, it was doing like a 15-minute spot on Tsunami, and they
Mm.
would show like one episode, and then just it'd be over in 10 minutes. It's like I need more.
Yeah, they did. There's this new Mandalorian series or like documentary series on Disney Plus, and Filoni has been working on it from the jump. But they showed a clip of that series, the fully cartoon animated.
Yeah,
They showed a little clip of it and stuff, which I was like, oh, I was like, because my friend John mentioned it to me like a week before or something, and I was like, oh shit, that's fucking cool. Because he was like, hey, have you ever watched this? And I was like, no, I haven't. And then he sent me like
so
an article on it.
I'm assuming you watched it by now, hopefully.
No, I still haven't watched it.
Dude,
It's been so crazy. I've been trying to. There's so much new shit is still coming out, and I'm trying to keep up with it. And then I'll do something like this where it's like, oh, I'm gonna rewatch a fucking trilogy.
yeah, and each movie is 2.5 hours long, so good luck fitting anything new into that.
Exactly. So that's kind of been my life the past couple of weeks, where I'm like, oh yeah, there's all this shit I want to watch, but I end up just getting sucked into something else.
That's fair. That's very fair. But like out of the whole like universe of Star Wars, that's probably one of my biggest like that's one of my most favorite things that has ever come out of the whole Star Wars universe, to be honest.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will watch it eventually. That's for sure.
Seeing General Grievous be introduced for like the first time back when he was like not like a crotchety weird like bug
Machine
was
thing.
yeah no he was terrifying
Yeah.
like because the reason he has those breathing problems in Revenge of the Sith, spoiler alert, stems from his fight with Mace Windu at the end of that
Yep.
cartoon series where Mace just force crushes his lungs in his
Yeah.
little chest cavity.
Yeah. That's sick.
It's crazy. If you haven't watched it yet, please do yourself a favor. Go on YouTube and just watch it because you can stream the whole thing in like 2 hours.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it for sure. So speaking of the MCU, I want to know your favorite MCU movie.
Oh, dude, my favorite. Come on, my. That's such a tough question, dude.
And it's hard, I know.
Okay, so after rewatch, we've started to watch them all like almost consecutively over this whole quarantine like summer vacation bullshit.
Yeah.
I think after rewatching it, honestly, like Thor Ragnarok is probably up there as one of my favorites, just because it's so funny.
It's great. Yeah.
It's hilarious. I love it.
I remember seeing that in theaters, and obviously at that point I was deeply engrossed and obsessed with the MCU, and that blew my mind because I was not expecting that. I don't think anyone was expecting
No,
that, honestly.
I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting that movie at all, and it kind of blew me away.
Yeah, it definitely, breathed new life into Thor, but the evolution from Thor 1 to Thor Ragnarok makes total sense.
Yes,
So
absolutely. I was reading something on the internet earlier today where Chris Hemsworth said that he hated the first two Thor movies. He was just so dissatisfied with them.
yeah,
But by the time Thor Ragnarok was like filmed and then subsequently released and everything, he's like, that just rekindled my love for this like character and this like franchise.
yeah, he's pretty much said he'll play Thor until they don't want him to play Thor anymore, which is very
That's
cool.
sick. I love that.
Yeah,
Big
I'll take him in being Thor till the end of time.
yes. One of my all-time favorite MCU movies will probably be Age of Ultron.
Dude, thank you. It's
I
not it's not in my top 5. It's so hard because my number 5 is kind of tied with like a million movies. I did a top 5 episode with Zach from Left Behind, but Age of Ultron is insanely underrated.
it's
Insanely underrated.
it's so good. I love the introduction of Wanda and like okay, is her brother like Quicksilver?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't
I love their introduction into the whole MCU.
Yeah, they don't call him Quicksilver because obviously the X-Men movies were happening at the same time where they had the other Quicksilver. It was the
Other Quicksilver, yeah.
same exact character because they're supposed to be mutants, but they couldn't say mutants, and they're actually Magneto's children. Which obviously in the X-Men movies, Quicksilver wants to talk to Magneto because he finds out it's his dad. But yeah, they obviously could not have said mutants or made them mutants. Or,
say that.
Yeah, now they can, but they couldn't then. That's the problem.
Because that just comes into the whole like contract dispute between like Disney and Sony regarding the Marvel universe, I think.
Yeah. I have some crazy theories with that where I think I don't know if they'll merge into one, but I think Sony's going to let the MCU help them kind of form everything in the future. At least I hope they do, because keeping everything connected is only going to benefit both parties. So
yes, I mean, I sincerely hope that they come to like a mutual understanding on everything, because I was really worried about the future for the new Spider-Man series.
Yeah, same.
Like far from home, like from what I understand, almost didn't happen because of that contract dispute.
Spider-Man 3 almost didn't happen. Far From
Okay.
Home was kind of already in the books and everything, but it was right after it made $1 billion, which made it the highest grossing Spider-Man movie of all time.
Yeah.
That's when, because there was supposed to be another movie on the deal, but it was like kind of like a handshake deal. It wasn't like a done.
Like a set in stone written contract deal.
Yeah. So then they announced that, we're going to take him back. He's not going to be in the MCU. And obviously everyone freaked out.
Everybody
and
was like, the internet was in an uproar.
Yeah, because I talked about this a little before in my podcast with Austin, because obviously we talked about Spider-Man, and I think they got a little too cocky because Venom did so well. Into the Spider-Verse became, so renowned, won a fucking Oscar. People were stoked on that movie, and that movie was incredible. So those two things I think made them cocky, and then they go, oh, Spider-Man Far From Home made over $1 billion, biggest Spider-Man movie ever. But what made that movie so popular? Oh, it was the first MCU movie after Endgame. It was pretty much the wrap up to it was the wrap up to the Infinity Saga.
Yes.
This crazy 23 movie arc. Like, of course that movie is going to make $1 billion. Everyone loves Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Everyone loves his integration with the MCU. And then if you're going to take that away, people are going to be pissed. Obviously, people were pissed, and that's why I think they came to the new deal, which is supposedly only going to be one movie and then an appearance in another movie at a later time, which we don't know what that is yet. But
no.
I think even after that, they're going to keep it going, because they're not listed, but I'm pretty sure Kevin Feige has a role in like Morbius and Venom 2. I'm not positive, but I have an inkling that he is, especially when we saw the Morbius trailer and Vulture was in the fucking trailer. Like,
yeah.
Even though that's a Spider-Man person, it's still an MCU character in a trailer for a quote-unquote non-MCU movie. Like, it's a big deal.
It is. Like, I just hope they can continue this tentative alliance, like, going forward, and just, like, let themselves, like, strengthen it organically.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to lose the current Spider-Verse as it sits right now.
No, I don't think so either. And it's and now Sony has a bigger piece of the pie. It's now a 50-50 deal. They both put in 50% and then get 50% back.
Yeah.
Before, Sony was putting up all the money, and then Disney got a percentage of it after it reached once it got to a profit. So we'll see. Who the fuck knows? I mean, Disney's one of the most powerful companies in the world. If Sony doesn't want to play ball with them, they'll figure out some way to make it happen themselves if they need to.
I'm really excited to see the where the Spider-Man arc takes us after okay, so it's Homecoming and then Far From Home, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. After watching Far From Home and Mysterio and his whole involvement with Mysterio and how they introduced his character and subsequently killed him off, but he shifted the blame, spoilers, onto Spider-Man for everything. Like, I mean, I'm really excited to see how they go forward with that in the next Spider-Man movie.
Same. I'm so interested to see what Spider-Man 3 looks like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Mysterio is dead. I think he's alive.
No, like it wouldn't surprise me if he faked it, because he's like, his whole shtick is he's a master of illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Paranoia. That's what that whole movie invoked, which was awesome.
Yes. The fight sequences between Spider-Man and Mysterio, where Mysterio was just playing mind games with him the whole time, was so trippy.
It's so nuts. That whole sequence is fucking bonkers.
Insane. I remember watching it with Distinguisher when we were on tour, and we had like an off day. So we're like,
yes.
Fuck it, let's, we'll pay for these 2 parking spots. Hopefully we don't get ticketed or booted or towed, but let's go watch the movie.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Dude, I was sitting in the movie theater obsessively checking the little app for the parking meter. I was like, shit, it expired 20 minutes ago. Oh, well.
Oh, no. Oh, well.
Whatever.
Well, apparently it worked out, right?
I mean, we walked out and it was fine.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It was
so, Captain America Trilogy. Even before rewatching these movies, I had it probably in my top 5 of trilogies ever, any trilogy, and rewatching it only reinforced that, honestly. So, how do you rate them from favorite to least favorite?
Okay. My personal favorite out of the Cap trilogy is The Winter Soldier.
Same.
I just like, I don't know what it is about that movie. It's just
perfect.
It's perfect. Like, I love how the first Avenger sets up subsequently everything for the rest of the Avengers saga, or at least the Infinity Wars phase. But it also, like, it sets up Steve's character perfectly for the Winter Soldier, and throughout the whole movie, you see him really come into his own, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like because Steve, he's been the little guy. He's always been the little guy. He just wants to do what he thinks is right.
Yep.
All the time, and that's the whole motif behind the entire trilogy. Yep. But regardless, I think the Winter Soldier is my favorite out of the Captain America trilogy. I love how they reintroduced Bucky and how they had started to flesh out their, reconciliation with each other.
I'm going to get into a story with that when we get to Winter Soldier. It's crazy. But yeah, mine's Winter Soldier's my top, Civil War is number 2, and then First Avengers number 3. But First Avenger, even after I always loved this movie, after rewatching it, it made me love it even more. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how much more I love this movie. I think it's because Marvel has this. They've done this like no one else has. Not Star Wars, not DC, not anything. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's Fast and Furious or whatever. Mm-hmm. They can make all their older movies better from what they do going forward, which is crazy, because you look at all these movies in a different light, because you know what comes next, and you live with these people. Like, we've lived with Chris Evans as Captain America for over a decade, and seeing all this shit and how it ends up in Infinity War and Endgame, like, watching this movie made me so, like, emotional in parts, because I'm like, fuck, like, this line now, I know they didn't plan it then, because when Captain America first came out, it was a very movie to movie basis of how if it would keep going.
It wasn't as much of a broad scope type thing when they first started.
Yeah.
Captain America movies out.
Yeah, it was very much like this movie needs to crush it or there will be no more movies, but they all
Exactly.
did. But the way they took stuff and built upon it, and then obviously by the time Winter Soldier came along, Russo's had the huge game plan. They had the game plan from Winter Soldier to Endgame already set. Like
Yes.
they had it all lined up, everything. So they're the real backbone of the whole Infinity Saga, obviously, because they're the big people who laid the biggest groundwork for everything. But yeah, I just couldn't. I don't know why I didn't think of it. I probably because I don't think I've watched this movie since I did a rewatch of the MCU before Infinity War.
Mhm.
So I don't think I've watched it since then. So that was a few years ago. But I like loved this movie. Like I don't know.
I remember I love everything about just the Captain America trilogy. Like he as I said, he's the little guy, and throughout the
Yeah.
whole trilogy, he's always the person to do what he believes is right. No matter what, like no matter who stands in his way, no matter like what kind of adversity he's faced with, because the entire trilogy, he doesn't know what's real or who's lying to him or who's really on his team.
Oh yeah.
So like you can see it in his distrust of Shield and everything. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't believe in organizations or agencies or whatever. He says it himself. He's like, I believe in individuals. I believe in people.
Yep.
And like those kind of interpersonal relationships, I feel really build up the MCU to be what it is because everybody's so tied in with each other. Everybody
Yep.
has these deep personal relationships.
Yeah.
And it draws you
100%.
in as a viewer because you become invested in these characters. You feel like their best friend or their enemy or whatever. Like
Yes.
you have a personal stake in these movies.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Endgame was so effective. Oh, and Infinity War. But I have a few notes about, I guess, technical behind the scene notes. So this movie came out in 2011, directed by Joe Johnson, who did Jumanji, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jurassic Park 3, and he won an Oscar for doing the visual effects for Raiders of the Lost Ark, which there's a ton of parallels from Raiders of the Lost Ark from this movie, which is really cool. The whole World War II thing, the whole fighting against Nazis thing, Nazis believing in a higher power, trying to take over the world kind of thing.
Yeah, the Teutonic myths and all that stuff like that. Like
exactly. And there's even like a callback where Cap's fighting one of the Hydra shield guys on one of the planes at the end, and the guy flies off and gets cut up by the blade.
Yes.
And that's a callback to Raiders Lost Ark and how Red Skull gets shot into space. That's same thing happens in Raiders Lost Ark, basically. So that's a really cool note.
It's really cool to see the comparisons between those movies and these more modernized movies. It's really cool.
Yeah, they show a lot of, nods to the comics, but they also show a lot of nods to like classic movies and stuff, which is really, really cool to pay homage to the things that, built these filmmakers to who they are.
And, also, just the way, on the technical aspect, regarding the first Avenger, since I literally just finished it, I love the way that every shot was like lit and just composed. And it's so cool. There's such a depth of like tension and emotion just because of how they set the scenes.
Yeah, and I was curious to see your input since obviously you shoot music videos and shoot live bands for content for them when they're on the road and everything. So I was excited to hear your insight from that aspect because I don't really know shit about any of that. So I can appreciate stuff and be like, oh, that was a really cool shot or stuff. But when it comes to the technical stuff or actually doing it, I have no idea.
Trust me, I'm not an expert by any means. Like I literally just try and ingest as much knowledge, like information and media as possible and try and apply it to my own work. But I think one of my favorite scenes out of the entire Cap trilogy was when Cap and Natasha have a meeting in the hospital after, he meets with Alexander Pierce to talk about Nick Fury and everything.
Yep.
Because he goes back for the little USB drive.
Yep.
And how just the tension in that scene, like, is just incredible. Like, it doesn't stray from that tight shot of them talking to each other. There's literally, I think there's 3 angles in that shot. Like, the kind of medium one showing both their faces, the one of Natasha's face and then the one of Steve's face.
Yeah.
But that just the whole overhead, that soft like white light like right behind her head and his head, just it really just sets that dramatic tone and everything. That scene in particular drew me in because it's lit well. It's very very well composed. Like how they set it up just evokes that kind of emotion and tension that I really really enjoy out of these movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All these movies are dark in a way for sure.
Yeah.
The First Avenger is obviously the less dark one, but it has its moments.
Yeah.
For sure. And Marcus and McFeely wrote this. They wrote the whole trilogy as well as Infinity War and Endgame. So they've been through the long run from the beginning to the end, you know.
They've been in the shit for the whole time.
Yep. It made, or the budget was 140 million and it made 370 million in the box office. So smash hit.
Love that.
5th movie in the MCU. Chris Evans turned down the role 3 times before taking it because
I had no idea about that. That's insane.
Because he was so worried about signing on because he knew if it did well, he would be in this role for as long as he was. So he was worried about it because he was kind of new then. Pretty much everyone in the MCU besides maybe RDJ were pretty new. Thor made Chris Hemsworth, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess Scarlett Johansson wasn't new either, but she was never.
She made her first appearance in Iron Man.
Iron Man 2, yeah.
Yeah. And she was just like the secretary spy, and you really didn't know much about her.
Yeah, exactly. And the second choice for Captain America, John Krasinski.
What?
Yep. He was almost Captain America.
That would have been interesting for sure.
Yeah. I completely agree. And funny enough on that note, Emily Blunt was the first choice to be Peggy Carter. Yeah. Which I'm glad she turned it down, which obviously then Haley Atwell became Peggy Carter.
Haley Atwell played a perfect Peggy Carter, in my opinion.
Agreed. And I'm glad they turned it down because they need to be Reed Richards and Sue Storm in Fantastic Four, Krasinski and Emily Blunt. That has to happen. I will not accept anything else.
No, they have to. They have to.
And the movie almost featured Logan, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine because World War II.
Yeah.
And in an animated series, Wolverine is in the Howling Commandos. And it almost featured a young Magneto.
I definitely understand why they didn't incorporate those elements within the first Avenger, but it would have been really cool to see.
Yeah, it would have kind of led to some problems in the future, but they offered it to Fox because at this point it was just Paramount. It wasn't, Disney didn't own Marvel yet. And they were like, hey, let's do this. And Fox was like, nah, we don't want to. We're building our own world. We don't want to get it involved with this, which was smart in the long run because obviously they would have went 10 years and they would be like, where the fuck is Logan? Well, he's in somewhere else. You know?
Right. He doesn't make an appearance because of, conflict of interest between everybody. But
yeah, exactly.
That would have just honestly pissed off the whole fan base at that point.
Yeah, it definitely would have. And crazy thing about how they shot Small Steve Rodgers, they shot it 4 times. So they shot it Steve Rodgers acting, but he was basically like on his knees, or the people in the shot were raised up to make him look smaller. They shot him 1 time with that, 1 time with Chris Evans on a green screen, another time with the shot without Chris Evans in it at all, and then a 4th time with a body double. So they could put his face on the body, and then put both things in the scene.
Composited everything really well. Which is a lot of the first Avenger, like you can tell was composited, especially like the Brooklyn, like New York City, like street shots.
Yeah.
There's no way to actually get that like 1940s like look out of everything because it's not the 1940s. But they did an extremely good job of compositing everything, making it look like so lifelike that it just immerses you into the whole film. Like you can't tell if you're just watching it, but if you sit back and think, it's like obviously like it's not real, but it looks so real that you're kind of fooled for a second.
Yeah, it does a very good job. Like even rewatching it did a good job of giving you that feel. Like obviously we weren't alive in that time period, but it gave you a good feel of like, oh, it could have been like this. You know what I mean? And it's funny because all the Hydra stuff they based off like Nazi Germany like vehicles and shit.
Yeah,
So that's super cool that they like brought that twist into it and just kind of modernized it or made it more
I do.
techy.
I do enjoy how like obviously it's not 100%, but it's like almost like historically accurate for that time period, and
Yeah.
it's really sick. I did notice in one scene where Cap was invading the Hydra facility to rescue Bucky and the
Oh
Howling
yeah.
Commandos, where there was a Hydra, you know, lackey just driving a fucking forklift in the back.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's
Yeah, it's like
hilarious.
one of those like small, like smaller, like low payload forklifts. But I was like, okay, come on now.
That
And like
definitely
I
wasn't
know
around.
Hydra's advanced, but you can't tell me this. You can't like this doesn't fit. It's in the scene right where he like knocks on that big iron door and knocks at that guard and is like sneaking through the
Yeah.
factory. And
Oh, okay, okay,
you see
yeah.
it in the background as it's like following Steve Rodgers, and you see it in the background, just like
That's like one of those funny things where it's not the same, but it's the same similar thing. But in some of the Lord of the Rings, since they shot it, I can't remember where they shot it, but in some scenes you can see like cars on the highway in the background.
yeah.
Just little stuff like that. It happens. You can't be perfect.
Didn't they shoot Lord of the Rings like the original trilogy in like New Zealand?
I think it was New Zealand. I couldn't remember, and I didn't want to say and be wrong, but it's something like that. It was some like beautiful location that would make sense for Lord of the Rings.
I'll let the internet correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was New Zealand.
It sounds right to me, honestly.
It's probably a myriad of places, but I distinctly remember at least like one thing that I saw or read, saying that some of it was filmed in New Zealand. So, again, we can let the internet correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, whatever. Who cares?
This is all
And
funny.
there's a funny thing because when Red Skull originally goes to Tonsberg, Norway,
Mhm.
so it has a weird history in the MCU. So it's the same spot where Odin and Asgard fought the Frost Giants, and it also becomes the new Asgard in Endgame. Same location.
Really,
Yeah, which I believe it's a nod to the comics too. That's where New Asgard becomes in the comics, I think, or something like that.
I love all the allusions and nods to the original comics that they incorporated in all of the MCU movies. It's
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoy how accurate they kept it to the original comics while still giving it its own like breadth and identity.
Yeah, that's the best thing they do. And I've worked at a comic store part time and stuff like that, and I've heard some super comic nerds because I know comics, but I'm not an expert. I just know a good amount. But I'll see so many people be like, "This isn't the comics I read," and I was like, "For one, comics are extremely convoluted, and most of the times the endings suck. Not all the times, but a lot of the times the endings are very anticlimactic. They
Yeah.
kind of just like undo everything. There,
Hmm.
there is there is a lot of exceptions, but a lot of the times it is like that, especially in Marvel. And so I'm just like, dude, like, do you really want to see the same story adapted? Like, I get it. It would be cool to see it live action, but you can tell these people love the source material because they put these nods that you'd only know if you read the
If you
comics.
actually read the source material.
Yeah. And the whole Captain America scene, especially the scenes where he becomes like the PR campaign guy, he makes that drawing of him as a monkey on a
Yeah.
unicycle. He becomes like, just a show monkey. And
Yeah. He just,
his whole costume is a direct nod to the comics. Him punching Hitler is straight off Captain America #1, which they show the comic in the actual movie, kids buying it, and
yeah.
those comics were made to sell war bonds
Hmm.
in World War II. It's exactly what happened,
Yeah. It's so accurate at that point. It's like scary. Like it's so cool to
Yeah,
see that small of attention to detail, like recreated
exactly.
in these modern movies.
And even the Tesseract is a nod to the Cosmic Cube, which the Cosmic Cube didn't hold an Infinity Stone in the comics, but I didn't think they didn't even know it was going to be an Infinity Stone yet, because
No.
technically this is the first movie with an Infinity Stone, but no one knew it was an Infinity Stone yet.
No, like it was just like a source of like like otherworldly power at that point. But it's really cool to
Exactly.
see it incorporated as an Infinity Stone as like one small piece to a greater whole as the series fleshes itself out.
Yeah, exactly. They did a really good job of retroactively making things Infinity Stones as everything went along.
Yeah, everything, like, they did a really good job of just making everything make sense.
Yeah. And there's some really cool, there's an evolution of his shield as, and I watch a lot of video movie breakdowns from this company called New Rockstars. They do insane video breakdowns that like do all the comic nods, even nods to like books and shit like that. They're super good, but he compared his quote unquote shield evolution to Iron Man's evolution in Iron Man 1, because at first he has the garbage can lid
Yeah,
in like the very beginning, and then he has right after the
the
super
serum,
soldier theorem
he uses the door of the
door,
tax.
and it has a star on it.
Uh,
And then he gets the prototype one, which is just completely silver. And
and
then
Peggy tries to shoot him.
yep. And then he has the fully fledged one. So it's like he compared it to how Iron Man, it was like the box of scraps, the normal silver one, and then the fully fledged out one, which I was like, wow, that's really cool. And there's another nod to Iron Man 2, the same noises that like the Tesseract powered guns make. It's the same noise that Tony's repulsor guns are, like the choo, it's like the same exact noise.
That synthetic like wind up noise right before it fires.
Yeah.
I did notice that while I was rewatching the first Avenger today.
Yeah, it's like a really cool connection. Like you said, they do a good job of making everything make sense.
Yeah, the continuity of this whole universe is just spot on.
Yeah, another comic nod is that when you first see Zola, you see his head in that like mirror thing, but it's green, which
Yeah,
is one a nod to his comic form, which kind of gets realized in Winter Soldier, and it's like a nod to what he becomes in Winter Soldier. But in the comics, he's more of like, it's like a robot, and his head is in like a screen in the stomach.
yeah,
So they did a nod to a completely different version, but also when they flee the shield base or the Hydra base that Cap rescues Bucky and the Howling Commandos from, when he's packing up his briefcase, you see a drawing, and it's like a drawing of the comic accurate suit, which is pretty funny.
I honestly I didn't notice that little drawing, to be honest. That's a really cool tidbit. I
Yeah,
could,
like I said, they go crazy with these little Easter eggs and stuff.
yeah.
And
I did notice the little like greenish like reflective
yeah,
screen in First Avenger and compared it to how he appears in Winter Soldier. I was like, this
yep,
is a really cool nod to the next movie.
yeah, exactly. And the first, not the first conversation, but I guess all the conversations Steve has with Dr. Erskine,
Mhm.
they they made me so emotional, because he always just says, he's like, I needed the person who I put the super soldier serum in to be a good man, so that's why I picked you, because you're a good man.
Like
And
that every interaction with Dr. Erskine was just so heart wrenching.
yeah,
It's like he's one of the few people that just genuinely believes in Steve and the
yeah,
fact that he can make a difference. Like he's fighting for the right reasons. So I feel comfortable giving him this gift, this power.
yeah. And obviously, right before he gets this serum, he does the big scene where he dives on the grenade. That's a fake grenade,
Yeah.
proving to Tommy Lee Jones' character that, hey, this is why we're picking this dude. He has heart. He just wants to help people.
Yeah.
And
Because
it's
like Jones' character, Carl Phillips was like, pick Hodge. Like
yeah,
he's the clear choice. He's physically fit. He obeys orders. He's a soldier. And the doctor was just, I don't need a soldier. Like we don't need a bully.
yeah,
We
exactly.
we need a defender, literally. Somebody
Yeah,
who's gonna stick up for people.
yep, exactly. And when they first meet each other, he says something that comes back in Civil War. So he goes, "So Steve, where are you actually from?" And he says
Mhm.
Brooklyn, and then Dr. Erskine says Queens. And he has the same interaction with Spider-Man. So that's why you see him
Where you
smile.
from, kid?
Yeah, where are you from, kid? He goes Queens, and he smiles and goes Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
And I'm like, I love it.
Tom Holland's appearance in Civil War, literally to this day, like gets me so unbelievably hyped.
Yep. And that was kind of like a last minute, not last minute, but they were writing the movie like in pre-production when Feige came in and goes, "Oh, hey, Spider-Man's going to be in this movie."
Okay, and they're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, they're like, "Let's go."
Spider-Man's fight between Bucky and Falcon was like it was. It's so great in Civil War, but again, we
Yeah.
can get to that. We can get to that in a minute.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So in the first two movies, there was these little mini horror scenes in them, and in this one, it's when Red Skull just goes berserk and starts evaporating people with the fucking Tesseract gun.
Yes,
I loved it.
he does it twice, I think, because he vaporizes the Nazi like committee that comes in to
yeah.
Why aren't you giving us guns?
Yep.
He just vapes them right there.
Yeah, I love the scream, the over dramatic like Wilhelm scream. It's so good. Yeah.
Blasted.
So
And then he does it again when the army like storms the final Hydra base, and you see him grab that gun and just start wasting people as he's running away.
Yep. Yeah, and when he goes to rescue Bucky, obviously it shows that we have already been saying he just wants to do what's right, not exactly what his orders are or what someone else thinks is right. He always does what he thinks is right. And that's so important with everything else moving forward, obviously.
Yeah, that's quintessential Captain America Steve Rodgers. Like at the end of the day, no matter what is going on, he's always going to do what he believes is right, is the best course of action.
Yeah. And when the bridge gets blown up between him and Bucky at first, and he says, "Get out of here," that's the same exact line he says to Vision in Infinity War. Again, callbacks. Love it.
Love the callbacks.
So great.
The whole I love in like the interactions between Steve and Bucky before Steve got the serum. He's like, Bucky says, "Don't do anything stupid until I get back," and he goes, "How can I? You're taking all this stupid with you." And then he does that calls back again in Endgame
when they switch it. Yeah,
dude. Okay, like you're probably gonna look at me different for this, but the first time I watched Endgame was less than 3 weeks ago.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, I hadn't watched Endgame like at all, like for the whole first year that it was out. I tweeted about it. I was like, I watched Endgame for the first time, and I'm literally a wreck.
Yeah, dude. I saw it in theaters twice opening weekend, and I saw you the same weekend because it was So What weekend.
Yes.
So
that was a good weekend.
That was an amazing weekend. But I have not been able to finish that movie, and I've watched it probably 6 times now without completely losing it. I bawl like a baby every time.
I legitimately cried like
oh yeah
more than a handful of times in that movie.
Dude, I was crushed the first time, and then the second time was even worse because you know what's coming and you catch a little more. Because I saw opening night, and watching that movie opening night in a movie theater was like going to the craziest sporting event of your life. People were fucking going nuts, screaming. Sam and I were screaming along with people. Like, dude, it was incredible. Because a lot of people were like, "Oh, that would have been so annoying," and I was like, "It was amazing."
Because everybody in there is there for the same reason. You're watching the culmination of like 20 something movies worth of events, all boiling to this one giant climactic moment.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You just watch it now because Anthony from Downswing did the same thing. I haven't talked to him personally about it, but he posted on Twitter and he watched Infinity War and he's like, "I just watched Infinity War. Don't text me or something." And I go, "Oh, you think that's sad?" I was like, "Wait until you get to Endgame." And then like a couple days later, he's like, "I just watched Endgame. I don't want to talk to anyone ever again." Or something like that. That's
how I felt. Like the whole next day, I didn't talk to anybody.
Dude, yeah, it is crushing.
It's
absolutely devastating.
Yeah, my God.
But I would never shame anyone on that. As long as you watched it and it crushed you emotionally, I know you're a human.
It 100% crushed me. I did enjoy seeing Pepper in her Iron Man suit.
Oh, yeah, that was fucking dope. That's a nod to the comics, too. It's called Rescue. But in the comics, there's no like offensive stuff. It's only for like defense and rescuing people. It's what it's actually made for. But yeah, it's That part was so dope.
It's so sick. I love how like they incorporated the shot of like all the heroines from throughout the series just kicking ass
It's
in the final battle of Endgame. It was so cool.
the portal scene is the most badass scene ever.
Yes. Oh, like I've literally never felt such like a swell of joy watching a movie for the first time as I did when everybody came through the portals.
That scene makes me tear up in itself. Just I don't want to. I'll talk about it when we get to Winter Soldier because obviously it connects with there. A few other notes I had. Bucky saying I had him on the ropes, and then he ends up dying right after, which is a callback to Cap saying I had him on the ropes in the beginning when Bucky saved him.
Yeah,
that crushed me, man. When Bucky died.
Their whole
especially watching it now,
like their whole relationship throughout the MCU, like just the whole like big like first, second, and third phase of the MCU just like breaks me every time because it's so it's just heartbreaking, dude. Like neither of them deserve this shit that they went through, to be honest. No. And to watch them in Winter Soldier be pitted against each other like that after everything they went through in the first Avenger together, like side by side, like Steve finally got his wish to fight beside his best friend in the army to like make a difference for like just people. He was doing what he wanted right beside his best friend.
Yep.
And to watch him die is just like that was heartbreaking.
Terrible. And then another note I had, full on World War II Cap is fucking badass. Those fight sequences are fucking dope.
The one where he like blows up that big ass Hydra tank
by himself.
Yeah, literally. Well, like like one of his Howling Commandos just tosses the sack of like C4 or grenades. Or
whatever. And he throws it down. Yeah.
But that's literally the only help he had. He destroyed that huge thing by himself. And the whole like World War II, like Captain America and the Howling Commandos fight montage like scene was so cool.
So cool. And that obviously ends up to the big battle at the end, them trying to stop Red Skull and blow up fucking the United States pretty much.
Yeah.
And I made a note of when Tommy Lee Jones and Peggy Carter get the crazy fucking hydromobile and they pick up Cap, and Cap kisses Peggy, and then he looks back at fucking Tommy Lee Jones and he goes, I'm not kissing you. He was so great in that role. He was really, really good.
Honestly, probably perfect for that role.
Yeah, because obviously he doubted him in the beginning for good reason, and then he eventually came around when he saved the fucking 400 people or whatever people he saved. Like he finally is like, okay, this dude's just a real fucking deal. Like,
yeah,
I get it now.
You can like Tommy Lee Jones' character, like the whole thing. He was just doing his job. He's the general of the United States Army. He can't afford to place such high hopes on the hands of like one individual. So up until Steve gets his Howling Commandos and is like actually like a full-on fighting force for his regiment, he was just like, I just can't trust you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like he was just doing his job, and it's cool to see him like come out of that and be like, okay, Cap, like what do we do here?
Yeah, exactly. There's also another weird Easter egg. One of the Howling Commandos, the Asian American one, he plays a principal in Homecoming, but the Howling Commando is like his grandfather, and he has a picture of his grandfather in his office that you see in Homecoming. Yeah, it's really cool. That's just another little Easter egg that again they choose to continue on with stuff, which is genius.
Again, the whole continuity of the entire MCU film verse is impeccably done.
And then Red Skull says the future holds no flags, which obviously can be interpreted as to what Captain America ends up being, because obviously in Infinity War he tears the star off his like costume, and he's technically he has no flag because he went nomad and everything.
Yeah, he's not just Captain America. He's like, I mean, in his title, yes, it's still Captain America, but he fights for the people.
Yep. Exactly.
Not for agencies or governments or organizations or whatever.
Yeah, and when he drops that fucking plane into the ice, him and Peggy talking.
His and Peggy's conversation, literally, it almost brought me to tears. Like when I was watching it, not even an hour ago.
Yeah, I got teary eyed when they started talking. He's like, I'm gonna need a rain check on that dance and everything. I was like, fuck.
Next Friday, 8 p.m. at the Stork Club.
I know.
We'll have the band play something slow. Like, I'd hate to step on your radio silence.
Yeah, because he talks when they're in the car. I think when they're going to do
Get
this
his
super,
like infused.
yeah, he says, yeah, I'm just looking for the right partner, and he's like, yeah, I'm sure, not a lot of women want to dance, want to have a partner who they can step on. I was like,
yeah,
man, why do you gotta do that to me?
It's just everything ridiculously circuitous.
Yep. And then obviously he wakes up in present time, and
Peggy is 95 years old, and he's heartbroken.
Yeah, and he's truly a man out of time. And then it ends with the line, I had a date.
Oh my God. Just because Fury was just like, you gonna be okay?
Yep.
And he just looks off into the distance like, I had a date. It's like, oh man.
Yep. And the end credit scene of this one, really weird, because it's actually just a scene from Avengers. It's the scene where Fury goes and tells Cap what the fuck's going on. Loki
I did
invaded.
notice that. That was I think that's one of the only MCU movies that doesn't have one of those post-credit, like, additional scenes.
Yeah, it's not.
That we've come to associate with MCU.
Usually it does it to lead up to the next movie, which it does, but it's a scene taken right out of the movie, not just a scene that's a different take on what's coming next, like they usually are.
It's just like it's more of like a traditional like movie trailer than it is like.
Well, yeah, because they show the scene and then they show a literal trailer right after.
Yes.
Which I thought was weird, but I guess at the time,
summer, like blah 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 blah.
I guess at the time that is really cool to show a trailer that far in advance, especially at the end of a movie, being like, "Oh, yo, here's the fucking Avengers trailer,"
It was really cool, but like I've definitely come to associate the Marvel universe, or especially the Marvel film verse, with those like post-credit, like ambiguous scenes. Like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah. Exactly. Especially now, they just get fucking crazier and crazier.
Yes.
And then, so, any more thoughts on this before we go to Winter Soldier?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
I'm sure as we talk about the Winter Soldier, we'll come.
Yeah.
We'll make more of these connections in between the two movies, but off the top of my head, I don't think so.
Of course, that's fine.
I did. Well, actually, hold on.
Okay.
I do like in the Camp Lahai montage scenes where Steve was preparing for that week up until he was infused with the serum. The flag scene really stuck out to me.
Genius.
Because it just proves that, if you just use your head a little bit, and that's his whole thing. He tries to like keep a level head and like think outside the box to solve his problems.
Oh yeah.
And that's been one of his big things, I think, throughout his whole trilogy. And then the whole like Avengers arc is just Cap trying to do his best to think outside the box to solve these problems.
Yeah, that's why he's always ends up being the leader.
Yes.
So Winter Soldier came out in 2014, directed now for the first time, Anthony and Joe Russo, who came from the TV world. They did some episodes of Community. Actually, the paintball episode of Community is what got them the job at Disney or Marvel. Kevin Feige saw that and was like, I need these guys to come on board, which is wild. And they did some stuff on Arrested Development and some other things. And then Marcus and McFeely came back to screenwrite. This one was nominated for an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. It did not win, but it was nominated. It had a $170 million budget and made $714 million in the box office.
Jesus.
So edging closer to $1 billion.
That's such a huge profit margin. Imagine just making that much money off something.
Yeah, I mean, well, they had Endgame that made $3 billion. So
imagine making $3 billion. Like,
yeah. So a few notes on the movie that could have happened. Hawkeye was originally supposed to be a part of the movie. He was supposed to go after Cap after they flipped the script after Fury died and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson wrote a lot of their own dialogue. They got the screenplay, obviously, but they kind of made their own version of it, which is really cool.
I do appreciate how organic all of their interactions were in that movie. Everything felt supernatural between both of their characters.
It's very genuine, for sure. And so obviously it starts off with the now famous line, "On your left," which comes up at the end of this movie too. At the end when they're in the hospital bed,
Yeah.
and Sam is waiting for him, and
He's
Steve says, "On
he
your
like
left."
softly moves and is like on your left.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then obviously it comes back with the scene we were talking about earlier from Endgame, when everyone comes back through the portals, and Sam says, "On your left," returning the favor to Cap.
Again, proving the circuitous nature of these movies.
Yes. And crazy note too, when Sam approaches old man Cap, he approaches Cap on his
On
left.
his left.
So
Old man Cap kind of broke me.
it's, dude, we'll talk about how his arc ends later, but yeah, it fuck.
That I can't get over it, dude. It broke me.
I know.
He absolutely deserved that happy ending. I will say that.
1,000%. I could not agree more. So obviously he meets Sam Wilson in the beginning, obviously becomes a big part of the Marvel Universe, this movie and going forward.
I love their friendship that they develop, like starting in this movie.
It's fucking great for sure.
Like such like with Natasha and Sam Wilson both, like there's such organic friendships that you can tell just matured over the course of the movies.
Yep. 1,000% because this movie, in my opinion, starts solidifying Black Widow's character.
Yes, absolutely. Because you see her as like not as a fringe character, but that kind of aloof, like bad bitch character that doesn't let anybody close to her.
Yeah, she's like full spy in this movie too. Well, her barriers break down as the movie goes on, obviously, but especially in the beginning when they take on that submarine or ship or whatever, and Steve's like, "What are you doing?"
The Lemurian Star, where
the Lemurian Star,
the satellite info was.
Yep, and Steve's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, this is you had your mission, I had mine." And he's like, "What the fuck?"
He has a big like compunction with that, like, and he expounds on it with Nick Fury. He's like, how can I lead these missions if you don't give me all this information?
Yeah, exactly. So when Sam going back to the first scene, sort of, he tells him to add that Marvin Gaye album to his list, or tells him to check out that album, and then he pulls out his list. So a funny story about the list: for every territory it was shown in, the list changes. In the UK, it has the Beatles, Sherlock. If for Australia, it has like AC/DC and Steve Irwin. So it changed to whatever pop culture was popular according to the region, which was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then
that was cool.
Yeah, and then speaking of when they go to the Lemurian Star, the guy Cap face, his name is Batroc, and that's a nod to the comics. This recurring villain called Batroc the Leaper, and even the colors he's wearing is a nod to Batroc the Leaper's comic accurate colors, which is pretty cool. He's kind of weird and he jumps really high. You know, the Leaper.
Like super acrobatic.
Yeah,
that's his whole basis as a villain. Is like, oh, I jump really high and I'm acrobatic as shit.
Yeah, exactly. And Cap diving with no parachute is a nod to the Ultimate Comics. He does the same exact thing. And
that scene was so cool.
So, dude, wrote this in my note a million fucking times. The action in this movie is fucking phenomenal. It is like fucking crazy.
Absolutely top tier.
It is insane because there's a scene even, and it's pretty brutal. There's a scene where he takes, and also this crazy note, Cap does not shoot a gun at all in this movie.
No, actually, I think the first Avenger was the only movie you see Captain America use a gun.
I think he might I think he does a little bit in like Age of Ultron and stuff, if I remember correctly.
I do think the first Avenger is the only time he uses a gun to shoot at another living being.
Yeah, that's probably true. But yeah, like his comic accurate is usually a shield and a gun. It's kind of like they kind of go hand in hand. Kind of like how you see Sam later, he always kind of has like the two like fucking
his like twin submachines,
or whatever. And yeah, Cap takes a knife and throws it into goes right through some dude's hand.
Yeah,
I was like, wow,
that was brutal. The whole like fight sequence of him storming that ship was insane.
He's just fucking people up.
Literally kicking the dog shit out of these people.
Yeah, just and he fully uses the shield fully head on, and he has that magnetic thing on his arm and the back, so it just like goes right back to his
Just
arm,
like snap to him.
which is fucking so sick.
I do enjoy the little thing, the little one-liner that Tom Holland has in Civil War is like, this shield defies all laws of physics.
So great.
It's so cool. Because it
And-
does, but you don't ever question it.
There's also a little part when that explosion goes off in the main room of the ship, and as Cap is grabbing Natasha, she shoots the window.
I did notice that.
To like, make it weaker so they can jump through it easier, which is also just amazing attention to detail that the Russos have. It's insane.
Yeah, it also like solidifies the teamwork that Natasha and Cap like start to develop over that. Like starting in that movie, especially, and then going forward.
Yeah, and then obviously he goes back to the Triskelion and talks with Nick Fury, which we kind of talked about a little bit, where he finally starts to doubt what S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing. He almost compares it to what Hydra was doing in World War II, being like, you're just trying to protect everyone with fear, which is not protecting anyone.
Yeah, like you can't call it protection while you hold a gun to their head. That whole thing.
Yes, exactly. He said, this isn't freedom, this is fear.
Yeah.
And, so he starts to question S.H.I.E.L.D.'s motives entirely, especially with Natasha having a different
agenda
than him
or mission than he did originally. Like, it's also interesting to note that in the ending credits scene with like Air Strucker, he's like Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. They're two halves of the same currency that is no longer relevant.
Yeah, which is wild because his character in the comics was originally the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., not Red Skull. Red Skull, I think they retroactively make him Hydra, but he was mostly just a reoccurring Captain America villain, really.
Yeah.
But it works all the same,
That's a really interesting like nod to the beginning of the movie where Strucker is like, these are just two halves to the same currency that is absolutely moot point now.
And obviously we find out throughout this movie that both sides were wrong. It's almost like the conversation I've been having about Star Wars. It's like the Jedi and the Sith, they were both wrong. They're both two extremes. Extremes in any form are not the right way to go.
Yeah.
You have to take the best of everything to make the best possible situation.
Yeah, it's like life I think it's trying to get across the motif that life isn't entirely black and white. It's just a series of shades of gray.
Exactly. Exactly. And then Steve goes and visits the Cap Museum where he relives his old life, also relives him losing Bucky, which obviously is foreshadowing for what's to come.
Yeah. But he can't stop going, and you can tell he goes there on a routine basis because he walks through there and makes the same loop that you can tell he's done 1,000 times.
Yeah. And he
can't let go of his past life.
Yeah. And then we see the best disguises in the world, which is just a baseball hat and normal clothes.
Yes, a baseball hat and a collar turned up real high. Absolutely insane.
Which they use later, obviously, when they're in hiding too, him and Natasha.
The scene when they're in the mall and he's wearing those like etnies.
Dude, yeah, those shoes are nuts.
Gross, dude.
They're wow, I'm 12 again. Cool.
He's like, if I run in these, they're gonna fall off.
And then he goes and visits Peggy.
Oh man,
dude, these lines that she says mean so much more now. Which obviously the Russos planned this because this was the beginning of their whole trajectory of everything. She says, "None of us can go back. All we can do is our best, and sometimes the best thing we can do is start over." They used the same line in a trailer for Endgame too.
That's so sick. I feel like that whole like that sentence carries a lot of weight for this movie in particular because that Alexander Pierce says something similar as like sometimes like I can't remember the exact line. He's like, sometimes changing the world means tearing the old world down.
Yeah, but it's something along those lines. It's very close.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that's a general motif for the movie is like, sometimes, to create something new, you have to get rid of everything that was old.
Yep, exactly. And at the end, they do start over. S.H.I.E.L.D. is done. they believe Hydra is done, but Hydra is not really done. But.
And that's another thing that I was really curious about at the end of the movie, because you see Rumlow being pulled into surgery, and then in the beginning of Civil War, you see him come back as I can't remember his like villain name.
Crossbones.
But you see him come back, and it left like a big like gap. Is like, how did Rumlow escape? Because he have been in a secure location. Like, is it evokes the end of that movie is like, is Hydra really done for good?
No.
Obviously, you figure that out in Age of Ultron, where they're going after Baron Strucker.
Yeah, and we find out that neither are really done. It's kind of weird because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still a show. It's ending. Its final season starts next week, I believe. But those events don't really concur with the events that are really happening. They do in some ways, like the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Winter Soldier gets referenced. Obviously, the whole show comes from the events of Avengers, and some stuff does get referenced, but for the most part, not really. We'll see how the last season goes to see how it, because they do a lot of time travel shit, so it's kind of hard to tell where they are in occurrence of time, or if it's in now what's been introduced in Endgame. Is it in a separate reality? Who the fuck knows? I don't fucking. It's a fun show, but you kind of have to treat it as its own separate thing.
Yeah, and like then, kind of with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. And then Cap goes and sees the end of Sam's meeting with like all the veterans, which obviously sets up Cap leading the support group in Endgame. Super parallels.
Love the parallels.
Yeah, and then Sam says something about him losing his partner when he was in the service, and he said he couldn't do anything. It was like he was up there to watch, which is obviously Captain 100% relate to because of what happened with Bucky. You know, he was just up there.
He couldn't save him. Like, he just watched as he fell into that abyss.
And it's also kind of foreshadowing to what happens in Infinity War. You know what I mean? Everyone just fucking dusts in front of him, like, and he was there to watch it.
He's powerless because, like, no matter how much of a powerful soldier he is, he couldn't stop something like that from happening.
Yep, exactly. And then Sam says to him, "You can do whatever you want to do. What makes you happy?" Which obviously. It's just setting up to the whole thing in Endgame where he goes back, you know?
Yeah. He's like, I don't know. Because, like, it's like you said earlier, he's just a man out of time.
Yep. It's always him being out of place, you know, literally and figuratively out of time. And he always has the fear of missing out. Just like in the first Avenger, he just wants to fight for his country. Then he is fighting for his country. But at first, he's just a fucking marketing tool, and he wants to fight. And then he is fighting, and and then he makes the sacrifice play to save the fucking world and everything.
And then he gets unearthed out of like a huge block of ice 70 years later, and he's like, "What in the hell happened?"
Yep. And
I can't imagine something like that happening like to me. No. Like ever. Just like waking up 70 years in the future, the same as I am now, like, and everything that I know is just completely different.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is pretty terrifying, and that does happen in the comics, but it's weird because the Avengers find him, and they just becomes a member of the Avengers.
Yeah,
same premise, you know.
Yeah.
So then we get to the crazy turn. Obviously, Fury knows something's going on. He goes and visits Pierce and goes, "We have to hold out Project Insight. Something's going on. I need to figure out what it is." And then we have that crazy scene in the fucking highway where he has the coolest fucking SUV alive.
Yes, literally. The super SUV.
And then we see, I believe that's the first time we see the Winter Soldier. And seeing him for the first time is terrifying.
Yes. Yes, like Bucky as the Winter Soldier it's like he instills fear in you, like 100%.
Because he's just there wrecking everything.
Like, just he's probably the only one that could like square up to Cap in a straight up like one-on-one fight outside of like Thor or the Hulk. Well, no, the Hulk would probably wipe the floor with him because he's
probably yeah. So that crazy score they have, like that screeching sound, it was originally thought to be Bucky's scream from falling in the first movie, distorted, but I guess the dude who composed the score did his own screams because he wanted it to. He took his screams and then just distorted them and made them all crazy to invoke like being a man trapped in a machine, which is what Bucky is until they fix him. But yeah, I thought that was fucking insane how they did that, because that whole score is like, it's like piercing and it's so recognizable.
The sound design in this movie especially was immaculately done.
Yeah, like it's so sick.
Like the tiny like mechanical whirring, like disjointed noises from Bucky like resetting
his arm. My god!
Every time that happened, it like sent chills down my spine.
Yeah, it is so nuts, the attention to detail in those noises and like how it moves and everything. It's so sick.
I mean, like it just goes to show how important like proper sound design is in like a film.
Oh, it's so important, of course. And then obviously Steve goes back to his apartment. He sees who we find out is Agent 13, who is Peggy Carter's niece. We eventually find that out, obviously. And so the song Fury is playing in his apartment is the same song that plays when Cap and Peggy reunite in Endgame.
Yes. I did notice that.
Amazing.
I rewatched The Winter Soldier, or finished my rewatch of it this morning.
Amazing. Love it.
Like, cause when I first saw the scene of them dancing in Endgame, I heard that the first notes as it like panned in on their characters' dance. I was like, fuck my heart. Dude, I can't tell you how many times this whole cinematic universe has just broken my heart.
Yeah, too many times to count, honestly.
I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'll always come back.
Same. I'm right there with you. Yeah, like a couple weeks ago, well, I didn't fully finish Endgame. I turned it off before I knew I was going to bawl my eyes out, but I watched Infinity War straight into Endgame, and that is a taxing toll to put on your body.
I bet, dude.
Because you're watching Infinity War just knowing what's coming, and everything else hits harder, obviously, because of Endgame, and you're just like, man, this hurts.
Yes.
And then we get that awesome scene where Cap chases after Bucky, and Bucky catches the fucking shield, which is amazing.
That was like heart stopping watching that for the first time.
Yeah, nuts.
I was like, holy! Like when I first saw that, like in theaters, I screamed like, holy shit!
And then we obviously, after Fury says that shield is compromised, and then he gets shot again, and they're in the hospital, and then he has to go back to the Triskelion
because Fury like technically dies.
Yes. Yeah. And then he goes back to the Triskelion. Pierce questions him, and then he gets in the elevator, which we get to the craziest fight scene maybe put in a movie ever. So Endgame is the craziest as far as scope and spectacle, but this, I think they recently the Russo brothers did a watch along of Infinity War and Endgame, and obviously they revisit the elevator scene in Endgame, which is amazing. And they said this scene took like 3 days to film or something like that. Something crazy. Like it took days to make it happen, which makes sense. The action is fucking gnarly. That
scene lasts for all of like the elevator fight scene itself lasts for like maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how like absolute like that thing, they had to have done that to a T to pull it off.
100%. And it's so amazing how he's like, before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Get off. That's the hardest one-liner like out of that movie.
Yeah. It's like, and that's the thing. He's being like pacifist about it in a way. If you want to get out now,
because he's worked with almost all those people in that elevator before.
Yeah,
like Ruffalo and the strike team. Like he's very close to those people because he runs matches with them all the time.
Yep, exactly.
So it's like it's his one last way of being like, I'm only going to show you mercy this one time. Like, please leave.
Yep, exactly. And then obviously he goes back to the hospital and finds Natasha. And
I mean, we have the
scene that you're talking about. And then Black Widow brings up that he's like, hey, this is the Winter Soldier. I faced him before. And I really hope they show that scene in the Black Widow movie. That would be fucking awesome.
That would be sick. I read earlier that her movie is going to take place between Civil War
and Infinity War, yeah.
Infinity War.
But so, I think there's going to be a lot of flashbacks in it because I fully believe that they're finally going to show the Budapest storyline that's been referenced a million times. So I think there's going to be plenty of flashbacks because obviously the people she meets up with are her quote unquote old family. Mm-hmm. So I think we might get some flashback stuff.
I hope so. She and Clint referenced Budapest so many times throughout the course of the MCU filmverse.
Yeah, so it has to have been done for a reason. You know, nothing is done without reason.
No, and that's especially prevalent in this universe because, they've meticulously planned out everything, so it all meshes together.
Yep. Yeah. So I hope we see some glimpses of that. We might not, but we'll see. I definitely think we'll get the Budapest thing though.
For sure. I hope so. That would be great.
Me too. And then obviously him and Black Widow go back to Camp Lehigh, which obviously is from the first Avenger, and then they go back to an Endgame 2, which is awesome. Mm. And I love the little scene of him seeing Small Cap and Small Cap like looking up at him, like he like sees it in his mind. I was like, that's fucking amazing.
That was a great little like callback to his past.
Yeah, it was great. And then obviously we talked about before, we see Zola in his sort of comic accurate form, which is wild. And the thing blows up and they get the fuck out of there. Oh, I love that Zola says, just like you, whatever, Captain Rodgers, we're both out of time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was a really powerful line right before everything blows up.
Yep. And then I don't remember if I think it happens. Oh no, yeah, it is. It's when they go back to Sam's house or whatever, and they're laying low, and Natasha asks Steve, would he trust...
If the roles were reversed, would you really trust me to save you?
And he says, now I would, yes, which kills me for what happens in Endgame.
Yes.
Murders me, hurts. And then obviously when Sam shows his he's like, count this as my resume, the folder says Falcon on it, which is awesome because they don't really call him, they might call him Falcon, but obviously the new show is called Falcon and Winter Soldier. But because it's the MCU does a thing where they usually don't call people by their comic accurate names, they call them by their actual names, you know. But I thought that was a little cool thing. And then obviously they go after Sitwell, and he has a Stephen Strange nod. He says, you know, who are you guys tracking? People like you, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, and they list off a couple other people that people have alluded to being comic, you know, people who could be based on comic characters, but nothing's obviously been proven yet.
Yeah, because that was the first. I think that was the first mention of Stephen Strange in the MCU filmverse.
I think so
up until Doctor Strange was released.
Yep. I'm pretty sure it was too, because it's crazy because he wasn't Doctor Strange yet. You know what I mean?
No,
which is awesome.
But Stephen Strange was high up enough on the global radar to warrant that kind of watch, that attention.
Yeah, algorithm is supposed to predict the future. You know what I mean? So they probably foresaw that it was going to happen somehow. You know.
Also, that's kind of a fucked up thing to think about, is a computer analyzing everything that you've ever done.
It comes up in a lot of movies.
There's also a lot of parallels to real life in that too.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah. I guarantee you half the shit we talk about on this is going to pop up on our phones as ads later.
Probably.
Real life parallels, buddy.
That is how it goes.
The way the cookie crumbles.
Ooh, I like that line. As Steve Rodgers would say, I got that reference.
I understood that one.
So, crazy story. I did not see this movie in theaters. I don't know why, but I watched it on a plane ride home from Europe when I was on tour with Lionheart. For some reason, I put it on. I was like, oh, I've never seen this movie. Why have I never seen this movie? I don't fucking know. I think it was before I was completely obsessed with Marvel before. Maybe. I don't even remember. And because I remember seeing almost all of them in theaters. But so I put it on. And this is before I knew anything about comics either. So I had no idea this was Bucky. Okay. I had no idea. And they obviously hide his face really well throughout the
They
beginning
did a
until
really good job of like making his character ambiguous until he's unmasked in their big fight scene on the
until
bridge.
until the reveal, and that comes off, and you see it's him. I was like, what the fuck?
Literally.
And just who the hell is Bucky?
Oh, that killed me. Because Steve, he couldn't fight anymore.
No. Yeah, and obviously, anytime Bucky's name is mentioned, it fucks him up because Crossbones does it to him in the beginning of Civil War, and it like shakes him. He even mentions that it shakes him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, he said Bucky, and I was a 16-year-old kid back in Brooklyn. You know, like it fucked him up.
Right. Couldn't stop myself.
And that's why he uses it to trick his past self in Endgame too. He says Bucky is alive because he knew it would fuck him up. You know?
Yeah, and past Cap was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, he's like, "What?" And just bam.
Gets him. Also love in Endgame where past and future Cap are fighting, and past Cap was like, "I can do this all day."
I know.
He's like, "I know. Yeah, I know."
Because he does say it obviously a lot through these movies.
Yes.
Also, I noted there's a lot of running in all three of these movies.
Hey, dude, this man run. Like, he's fast. I wish I had that endurance.
I don't think anyone alive has that endurance.
No, never. There's no way anybody could. But like, damn, like he's just running nonstop.
Yeah, and obviously we see Fury's back, and then we see the montage of how Bucky becomes the Winter Soldier, which is super cool and heartbreaking and fucking fucked up.
And like, there's a scene where, like, after their big fight, after Cap and Bucky's like reuniting after they fight, Alexander Pierce is with Bucky in that Hydra facility. And he's like, prep him, and they're like, well, he's unstable. Like, we don't need to put him back out on the job. And he's like, well, wipe his fucking memory and do it again.
Yeah, because you can see he goes, I knew him. You know, you can see, and that's so cool because he started seeing the flashbacks of like what happened to him. And I love that their friendship is what prevails over everything. You know, years of fucking Hydra brainwashing and whatever the fuck they're doing to him and programming, and their friendship still seeps through.
Because Natasha mentions that he's been credited with over 12 high-profile assassinations within the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Because he kept being like frozen and then unfrozen and then mind wiped and then sent out on a mission and then mind wiped and then refrozen and then it happens so much that it's honestly that probably would be the only thing that could have brought Bucky out of it is his and Steve's relationship,
which is amazing. It's beautiful.
Best friendship ever.
Yes, I agree.
Well, it's a tie between Steve and Bucky's friendship and Steve and Sam's friendship.
Yeah, they're both are really good. But I mean, obviously, Steve's and Bucky goes back a little longer.
Oh, yeah. I do love the whole Three Amigos thing that they did in
Civil War.
Civil War.
It is great.
Where they're riding around the Beetle.
Yeah, he's like, can you move your seat up? And he goes, no. It's so great.
That scene gets me. I was like, he kisses Sharon, and then he looks back at them, and they're just like, yeah.
Which is super weird because this is the love of his life's niece.
Like, yeah, like, is it? Yeah, it's her niece. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's got some explaining to do when he goes back to the 40s. You know,
I really hope that conversation just doesn't come up between him and Peggy. I hope they never have that conversation.
Same. I mean, who is she to know? How is she ever going to find that out? They live in an alternate reality.
Yeah, that's fair. In the alternate reality, hell, Sharon might not have ever been born.
That's true. That is true.
That's the problem with the whole Marvel alternate reality verse or the multiverse.
Yeah, it can become complicated.
And it's like you said, like earlier, like returning back to the whole comics thing. There's so many different facets of this huge multiverse that it gets so convoluted and hard to keep up with at times.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad it took them, 20 movies to introduce it.
Yeah. But now the whole multiverse thing is like it's a very prevalent factor in the Marvel universe going forward. So I could probably see Marvel exploring that, and they are in the Doctor Strange thing, the next Doctor Strange movie.
Oh yeah,
the Masters of Multiverse.
Yeah, it's gonna go crazy into multiverse shit, and I think it'll end up in Secret Wars, which is basically the multiverse collapsing into one.
Yeah. So in the multiverse, the Masters of the Multiverse, do you think that we're gonna see like an alternate reality Cap?
We might. I That's the thing about that movie. I don't know what to expect. I just know it's going to be fucking bonkers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all like the first Doctor Strange movie was literally nuts.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I think it's going to be that times like 10. You know what I mean? Because everyone's like, when's the next event film coming up? And I'm like, yo, it's this next Doctor Strange movie. It's going to be fucking insane.
Yep. the doc like the Doctor Strange movies always they have to be super convoluted because that's just who he is as a character.
Yeah, he's crazy, and we're only seeing the start of him too, which is awesome.
Yeah,
He's wild.
batty, if you would
Yeah.
go so far as to say.
And then we see Stan Lee's cameo where Cap goes and steals his OG uniform, and he goes,
I'm so fired.
I'm so fired." So great.
Did Stan Lee have a cameo in? No, he did have a cameo in the first Avenger. He was the general.
Yeah, and he goes, I pictured
thought
him
he'd be taller.
Yeah, I thought he'd be taller, which obviously is like the running joke because when he comes out of the pod, he goes, "How do you feel?" And he goes, "Taller."
And even when he rescues Bucky in the first movie, he's like, "I thought you were smaller."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's like a reoccurring joke throughout the movie, which is great.
Love that. I love the little illusions and everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then it pretty much ends. They leak Hydra and Shield's information on the internet. They take down Pierce. They have that crazy fucking battle between Bucky and Cap on one of the helicarriers, which ends.
The whole ending helicarrier fight scene was like it's so good.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Cap and Bucky's like their individual fight scene on that helicarrier was heart wrenching.
Oh yeah, especially when you get to the end and he's
like, "I'm not gonna fight you. You're my friend."
Yeah, and then he goes, "I'm with you to the end of the line."
Ah,
and then he knows he's like, "I know this person."
Yes,
you know what I
mean? Like, because like he's leading up to that, he's trying to explain to Bucky is like, "I knew you. Like, we grew up together. Like, we lived down the street from each other." And he's like, "You're my friend." And Bucky goes, "You're my mission," and just starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
I was like, "No, dude, come on, no."
And then obviously he saves Steve at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much ends with Fury going his separate ways. Sam and Cap being, they're like, Sam's like, I'm with you. Let's do whatever we're gonna fucking do. Which obviously Cap plans on going after Bucky, and then Natasha weirdly goes off into a different kind of thing, which kind of immediately gets retconned with Age of Ultron because they're just back together with the Avengers.
Yes. Her explanation for leaving is that she has to come up with new cover aliases because she leaked all of hers with the Shield files that she dumped on the internet.
Yeah.
But like you said, it got retconned with the whole Age of Ultron thing.
Because they're just back together being the Avengers.
Yeah. Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and then the end credit scenes directly set up Age of Ultron and Civil War, kind of both. Because the first one is Franz Strucker and you see the twins.
And then the actual post-credit scene, you see Bucky in the Smithsonian looking at his, like, the fallen brother exhibit, and it's, like, his obituary.
Yeah, yeah, which obviously kind of goes right into Civil War, obviously.
Again, imagine, like, waking up, like, one day, like, in the not-so-distant future and reading your obituary in a museum.
Nuts.
Literally. Like, how is anybody supposed to cope with that?
I don't know. Yeah, on top of being a brainwashed killer spy.
Yes, like, dude, like how, like he not only is he having to like unbrainwash himself from being like a Hydra spy, he also is reading his own death certificate, literally.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, that's another heartbreak. One of the many heartbreaking facets of this trilogy.
Yes, and then we get to Civil War.
Oh man, dude.
So, came out in 2016. Again, directed by the Russo brothers. written by Marcus McFeely. It had a $250 million budget and made $1.153 billion in the market.
It's insane, like just the amount of revenue that they bring in subsequently, movie after movie after movie.
Oh yeah,
because it all just grows more, 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 more.
Pretty much. Yep. A few notes. Actually, really only one note that Wasp was originally going to be introduced in the airport scene, not in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but they decided to leave it for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay.
It's really the only thing I got.
I think the only Marvel movie that I haven't seen is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, it's super fun. It's great.
I mean, I might go back and rewatch that, or just watch it for the first time today, because I work tonight, so I don't have anything else to do for the rest of the day.
So just prepare yourself for the end credit scene. That's all I gotta say.
Oh man, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and put up my mental walls, prepare myself.
Fair enough. And then obviously this one opens up with Bucky getting activated by those keywords.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit fucks me up.
When he undergoes his little soldier activation sequence each time, it's just it's so distressing watching it.
Yeah.
Because you see him actively fight it, because he doesn't want to keep doing it. He wants to get out, but no matter that sequence of words just trips him.
Yeah, and then you see him go on the motorcycle, which obviously we find out later that it's him killing Stark's parents, which also I forgot to bring up in Winter Soldier. You see how Hydra planned to kill Stark's parents. When Dola goes through the newspaper articles, one of the things is killing the Starks, and then obviously you see Nick Fury's thing too, because they think he's dead. They had to fake his death to make sure they thought he was dead.
The newspapers flash Nick Fury's and Howard Stark's death headlines and stuff like that.
Yeah. So here's my thing on this movie. I almost think a lot of people love this movie for good reason, but I feel like it's underrated in a sense, because I feel like a lot of people miss the whole point of the movie, which is that no one wins besides Zemo. Really, Zemo wins. This is the perfect setup for everything that's coming next, because they lose. It's a civil war for a reason. Neither side wins. They both lose.
Yeah. There's not a single character that comes out of this unscathed.
No, not at all. And obviously everyone has their sort of loss in the movie when it comes down to it. And another thing, everyone goes, oh, this movie is Avengers 2.5. It shouldn't even be a Captain America movie. While obviously it is kind of an event movie, it's a big ensemble cast. It was the biggest cast so far. And comparatively to the comic Civil War, it's a lot different in a way. There's definitely similarities, but Civil War in the comics is so many more characters. It's almost like Endgame and that kind of scale and everything. And
the whole Civil War arc in the comics, from what I understand, is just so massive.
It is very massive. It's huge, but it's awesome, and they do a good job of nodding to it, which I'll bring up as well. But it's really, when it boils down to it, this whole movie Cap is the backbone of this movie. It's about his relationship with Bucky, his relationship with Tony, and then his relationship with, once again, like we've always said, him wanting to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it falls off Winter Soldier of being who do I trust? Who do I follow? Because obviously Thunderbolt Ross becomes the new leader because he's Secretary of State. Yeah. And he becomes the new, high on the chain of command. We gotta follow him. I feel like a lot of people miss that, which kind of bums me out in a way, because this movie is so pivotal. And I know a lot of people, like I said, comic people are like, oh, it's nothing compared to the comic. And I was like, it's different, but it's just as effective. Because
I mean, of course it's different, because it's like you said earlier, most of these comics, they end in a very unflattering, anticlimactic way.
Yeah, because the comic ends with Captain America getting assassinated, which obviously would not have made sense at this point in time.
No, absolutely not.
So they break up the Avengers. Obviously, Cap knows that Bucky killed his parents. Bucky knows that he killed Tony's parents. How is that not dark and heartbreaking? Black Panther's dad gets killed.
Yeah, and he thinks Bucky did it. So everybody is just literally being pitted against each other.
War Machine gets paralyzed, basically.
Yeah, dude. Rhodey's scene where he's falling out of the sky, literally, like, every time I watch it, I'm on the edge of my seat, and I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and it's great too because the music cuts too. It completely goes silent, and you just
like
hear the
the
thud.
wind like passing as he's like falling, and then the giant impact.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, and when Vision is over, Stark's just looking at him like, "What have you done?"
Yeah, it's awful.
Because Vision, like, he was Jarvis, and like Tony trusted Jarvis to do everything.
Yeah, and Vision has like pieces of Tony because obviously Tony created Jarvis, so it's like part of Tony is in Vision. You know what I mean? It's like an extension of himself in a way, which is wild. Right in the beginning, Tony is at MIT giving his presentation. He shows off the barf technology, which obviously comes back in Spider-Man: Far From Home, which is really cool. A lot of people speculated that it could have came back and somehow how they were going to fix things in Endgame. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but still, it. Like I said, the MCU does not put things in as a mistake. It's always meant to come back in some way, shape, or form, which it did. And then he gets confronted by a mother who her son got killed
in the Sokovia incident.
In Sokovia, which is a nod to the Civil War comics. It kind of what branches the events. It's just different in the comics. Someone's son gets killed. It's like a mutant catastrophe happens that kills like hundreds of people, kind of like Sokovia. And then it ends up, this leads to the Sokovia Accords, which in the comics is called the Superhero Registration Act, which is basically the same thing. The only difference is that in the comics, it was such a big deal because everyone's secret identity was kind of a huge deal.
Yeah, and big, like the registering as a superhero completely just gets rid of the secret identity thing.
Yeah, because they were forced to tell everyone their identity. And that's like in the Civil War comics, Spider-Man plays a massive role in it. He ends up turning from Team Iron Man to Team Cap, but Iron Man convinces him to sign the Registration Act, and he comes out revealing himself as Peter Parker and stuff like that. But whatever, it's fine. Well, obviously we didn't have that kind of relationship with Spider-Man to be able to do that kind of thing. It was his introduction. It would have made zero sense to be like, oh, here's Spider-Man. Oh, also we're going to reveal your secret identity when you're the only person in this universe to have a secret identity. Makes zero sense. So, like I said, it doesn't need to be exactly like the comics at all.
No, that's the glory of like making a movie. Like obviously, like you take references from the source material and just expand on it.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm okay with it not being entirely accurate to the comics because it lets the established universe evolve in its own way.
Exactly. It works way better in my opinion. So the reason that Zemo has all this information on how to invoke his whole plan is what happens in Winter Soldier, because all these files are leaked, so he can go find the Hydra agents and he can find out, and that's how he finds the book to activate Winter Soldier's thing, and that's how he finds out about Winter Soldier in the first place.
Yeah, the soldier that he interrogates about the mission report from December 16th was the original like handler for Bucky.
Oh yeah. Right. Yep.
And I only noticed that on my recent rewatch of Civil War. I was like, wait, these two are the same. This is the same guy.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
So that's why he like went to his house and interrogated him.
Yeah, and then we go to Peggy's funeral, which
dude
sucks. Yeah,
like the scene leading up to that was heartbreaking too, because like Secretary Ross was like blaming Cap and blaming Wanda for everything that happened, and like for the Wakandan like representatives like being killed because of Crossbone's bomb and everything.
Yep.
Like he's literally blaming them. And then he gets that text, is like she passed in her sleep.
Yep.
I was terrible. Like, no.
So there's a weird theory that one of the pallbearers, there's an old man in the bottom left-hand corner carrying the casket, that is old man Cap. And on recent watch along, the screenwriters confirmed that it was old man Cap, but the tweet was like, I like that theory, I can confirm it. So, but the Russos say that like, no, it wasn't him. He lived in an alternate timeline. It's not him.
Yeah.
So I'd rather go with them than the screenwriters, because obviously they did, write the words, but kind of the people who make the big decision is the director and the producers. You know what I mean?
However, if it was an alternate timeline, how would old Cap show up in Endgame if he wasn't carrying the casket?
I had a long conversation. My first episode is me and Ethan arguing about Endgame because he doesn't like a lot of it.
Ethan Harrison?
Yes.
Oh man, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. So it's me and him arguing about what he thinks are plot holes in Endgame. And I agree with him on one. I proved him wrong on a lot of them, so I'll take it. But he brought that up, and I go, okay, get this. Cap knows all this stuff is possible. He knows that doing what he did creates an alternate reality. He knows that the quantum realm can bring him into different timelines or possible different alternate realities. He goes back to the 40s. Mm-hmm. So, and they're now in 2023. That's a lot of fucking time. Obviously, he knows that like people like Howard Stark and Hank Pym are at S.H.I.E.L.D. Peggy helped founded S.H.I.E.L.D. So he can find these people and be like, yo, this is possible. Because the biggest thing is that they're confined to the time they're in.
Yeah.
So he can be like, yo, this is possible through the quantum realm, blah, blah, blah. And with, like, maybe in this world, Stark and Pym are actually friends and they don't hate each other like they do because of what happens in S.H.I.E.L.D. and Ant-Man and shit like that. So they work together and they can easily create something for him to get to that reality.
Yeah.
To give the shield.
That's to pass on the mantle of Captain America.
Yeah, that's my explanation. And Ethan said, oh, you're writing the movie for them. And I'm like, am I? It kind of just makes sense of what they've set up, to be honest.
It's definitely a plausible explanation. But like that also like goes into like it delves into the personal relationships. Like how would Cap being in that alternate timeline influence the relationships between Pym and Stark and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's an alternate timeline, so
you can make an entire separate trilogy about Cap going back and then living the rest of his life.
Yeah, like what happened?
Yeah, like what would have happened if Cap would have made it back to Peggy, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they are doing that what if show. Maybe. I mean, I know they're. I think one of the episodes they released is that what happens if Peggy Carter took the super soldier serum and then Steve Rodgers ends up becoming pretty much like an older version of Iron Man. Like he gets like Iron Man like armor and fights alongside of her as Captain America.
That's a really cool what if concept, to be honest. Like,
yeah, all the ones that have been coming out have been super cool. So, and it's like animated, so they can do whatever they want. But they're getting the people who played them in live action to voice them. So
that's really, again, another nod to the continuity and everything.
Yeah, because I know there's another one where like T'Challa is Star-Lord, which is super cool.
That's weird, but that's sick.
Yeah, it's cool. It's great.
You wouldn't think of like T'Challa and like Star-Lord just interacting at all. No. So that's a really cool thing or an avenue to explore.
Yeah, I agree. And then after that, we get to where they're chasing after Bucky because obviously T'Challa thinks Bucky killed his dad. Mm-hmm. And we see Black Panther fully in costume. And a crazy thing about his costume, it's completely CGI, 100%. Whole thing. Yeah. Which is sick.
That's tight.
The technology they have and they pull off is unheard of.
Literally, it's like it's beyond anything that probably you or I would even have access to.
No.
I love T'Challa's character and just how like regal, like he holds himself with such an air of confidence throughout the entire, like since he was first introduced in Civil War throughout the rest of the series, he just holds himself with such an air of like confidence and regality. You can't help but respect him.
No, yeah, exactly. He's like so chill, but so badass at the same time.
Yes, dude. I love T'Challa and Black Panther. Like I just love that character. Love him.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'm very stoked to see where they go with him going on as well too.
I don't think Black Panther 2 will be out until like 2022, if what I read is correct.
It's a while.
No, Phase 4 and Phase 5 are going to take a while.
Yeah, Phase 4 is like the next like 2 or 3 years, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it ends with Captain Marvel 2, I think. Well, unless there's a show that comes after that technically ends Phase 4 or whatever.
I think part of Phase 4 is the Shang-Chi movie.
Yeah, I think that's before all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to remember what the order is anymore. But I think Shang-Chi, which is cool, it's going to happen in the period of the 5-year gap that's happened in Endgame.
Like after like the initial like snap.
Yeah,
and, like
after they go and like chop Thanos' fucking head off like a month after Endgame or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it says 5 years later. I think it's supposed to happen in that crazy gap of fucking dystopian life.
Literally, like just imagine like how like again, like it's just imagine like that happening. Like you can't like I can't like fathom that happening in our like reality.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of been saying at the beginning of this whole thing, it was kind of like that because it still kind of is because like shit is empty and, like you go to parking lots and there's no one in there and you're like, what the fuck?
But like everything is vastly different now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Than it was. It's so different now than it was at the beginning of January. And that's like 4 months, dude. Like 4.5 months.
It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. COVID-19 sucks.
Yeah, I'm making the best of it for sure, but it's definitely not the greatest thing.
No, it's not the best thing. Well, I would love to be on tour right now. That would be sick.
Yeah, I would love for you to be on tour too.
Dude, we'll get there. We just got to get through this shit.
Yeah. Obviously, they all get arrested. War Machine arrests them. And then Zemo goes in, fucking activates Winter Soldier. And I love this line when he's attacking Natasha, and Natasha goes, "You could at least remember me."
I love that.
It's so great because obviously they're talking about shit that happened in Winter Soldier and then what she was explaining in Winter Soldier about before and everything. I thought that was great. And then Tony goes and recruits Spider-Man because obviously he sees that Cap is building up his team. So
I have to like come up with something.
Yeah, because he finds out that they're going to go to Germany and go at the airport. So he's got to build up his team. So he does Spider-Man. Then we finally get Spider-Man in live action in the MCU, which is the greatest.
The reveal for Spider-Man, just like Tony screaming Underoos.
Yeah. Then he goes, "Hey guys."
Like, "Hi guys."
Oh my god. And just like you were saying, his fight with Bucky and Falcon, and he's just like, "Wow, you're really strong."
he catches Bucky's arm. He's like, "You have a metal arm?"
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. and then Sam's
Falcon's like, "I don't know if you've ever been in a fight before, but there's usually not this much talking."
Yeah, it's so great, and it shows how strong
Spider-Man is.
Like he just catches fucking Winter Soldier's arm. Like what?
Just like it's nothing.
Yeah, he's just like
he's not exerting any effort.
Yeah, and Bucky's like so thrown off by it. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Literally.
So fucking great. And then so this is crazy. Obviously he references Empire Strikes Back. He does the thing with Giant Man and ties around the legs and trips him. Tom Holland, at least when they filmed this movie, never saw Empire Strikes Back. He's such like he's a good modern Spider-Man. Like he's the best Spider-Man by far.
100%. If you disagree that he's the best Spider-Man, I really like question what is wrong with you.
A lot of people do. It's crazy. You go on the internet, man, and people are like, "Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man." I was like, okay, Tobey Maguire
was honestly a whiny bitch.
Yeah, he is nothing like Spider-Man. You can listen to Austin I's podcast, and we talk about so many things that are stuff that Peter Parker would 100% not do.
Never do.
Ever.
Never do.
In Spider-Man 1, he kills a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Or he lets him die. Either one.
Yeah. Like Peter Parker would never do that.
Never. Ever. It's crazy because I think up until Endgame, he does not throw a single punch.
He just retaliates.
Yeah, it's all like kicks. He does not throw a single punch, which is nuts. Like that just shows what Spider-Man is, like
Spider-Man's just like a quintessential good guy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the best of all of us, and that even Tony says that in Homecoming. He's like,
yeah, he's the best of us.
Yeah, he's like I wanted to be like you, and Tony's like, I wanted you to be better than me.
Yeah.
And there's even when Spider-Man falls down, you can see how worried Tony is, which obviously completely sets up for what happens in Infinity War. One
Yes.
of the most heartbreaking scenes
Mr.
ever.
Stark, I don't feel so good.
Whew.
That like put the nail in the coffin, and then Stark dying in Endgame,
Yeah.
and like Peter just like
Being there.
collapsing, as like that drove it home. Like I was like, this shouldn't, like, I shouldn't hurt this bad, but I do.
Dude, when I watched Infinity War in the theaters, my jaw was dropped from when Thanos arrives in Wakanda till the end. Because
Yes, like I
I could not believe what was happening. I was like, because
like
I read the Infinity Gauntlet comic, which Infinity War is loosely based off of. It starts with a snap, so as the movie's going on, I'm not even thinking about the snap until it happens. I'm like, oh shit, he did it. I was like,
yes,
whoa, what the fuck? And then you just see the people that dust in that movie are crazy because obviously Spider-Man dusts, almost all the Guardians dust, Black Panther dusts, Wanda, Falcon, Bucky. You're just like, what the fuck is happening?
all these like quintessential characters that you have like an almost real relationship with are now like seemingly gone forever, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Like,
That's probably one of the biggest what the fuck moments in the entire like MCU film verse today.
oh yeah, because no one was expecting that. No one.
No, absolutely. No
'Cause
one was expecting Thanos to win at the end of Infinity War. And I feel like that was the biggest what the fuck of all.
Yeah, and like I said, I watch like crazy breakdown videos, and they do breakdowns of trailers trying to theorize what will happen in the movie. And I listen to a ton of nerd podcasts. That's why I end up starting this podcast, obviously. And they were all like, trying to theorize or think what would happen, and they're all pretty much like, I know I'm probably going to be wrong, and that's totally fine. And they were, because with those trailers, they gave away nothing. You know what I
No,
mean? Like,
absolutely nothing. I will like going back to like Civil War itself though, I really enjoyed how it fleshes out or continues to flesh out Cap's relationship with Tony.
oh
Because
yeah, dude.
they do get close, and like they're literally cut from the same cloth, and you can tell they
Yep.
just have completely polar opposite ways of going about achieving the same result.
Oh, and you can see how fucked up Tony is when he finds out that Cap knew Bucky killed his parents at the
Yeah,
end.
it's like
Which,
it's literally like his brother like keeping just like a terrible secret from him and just being heartbroken.
yeah, he's so fucked up by it. And obviously Tony kind of keeps his moral high ground for the most part, but after he hears that, he goes after Bucky so hard. He shoots a fucking rocket at him and everything. Like, he is so mad that he killed his parents, which
Yeah,
rightfully
he's
so,
trying to kill Bucky,
Yeah.
like legitimately.
And that's very un-Tony Stark like, but the
Yeah,
reaction is human, he is a
yeah.
human.
And
And
then there's one line where Cap and Iron Man are fighting while Bucky's like currently temporarily incapacitated, and Tony asks him why he wants to save him, and Steve is like, "He's my friend," and Tony responds, "Well, so was I,"
yeah.
and that hits so hard.
Yeah. Like I said, this movie is completely underrated for the fact of moments like that.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, nobody wins. There's not a single way for anybody in that movie to win.
Yeah, and obviously this was Zemo's plan to get them to go here to chase the Winter Soldiers, which he planned on killing the entire time, but he wanted to get them to show that Bucky killed Tony's parents, and he wanted to make sure that Bucky, Tony, and Cap were all there at the same exact time. He
Yeah,
planned it perfectly to break up the Avengers.
because Tony and Cap, they're like the two like pillars holding the
Yeah.
Avengers up.
Yep.
And Bucky, he just used Bucky as the catalyst to
Yep.
like, it's like he said, like, an empire toppled from the outside will always rise again from the ashes, but an empire toppled from within will never regain what it once was.
Exactly. And obviously there's the whole thing of Age of Ultron where, Tony says the whole thing, we need a suit of armor around the world. He's like, what if something happens, where we can't, what if we lose? And then Cap says, we'll lose together. And they end up losing apart, which is obviously the biggest part of Infinity War and Endgame is them coming back together finally.
Yeah.
And
just like finding that unity again.
yeah, exactly. And fucking, so within the fight, there is, on one of the issues of the Civil War comic, they recreate the cover which is Tony with the blasters and Cap blocking it with the shield. That's straight out of the fucking comics. There's also a part in the airport scene where Ant-Man gets on Hawkeye's arrow. That's ripped straight from the comics too. Another cool
That was a great scene
Yeah.
where he infiltrated Tony's armor.
Yeah, which obviously Tony uses trick his old self in Avengers when he has Ant-Man go in and pull the thing to give him like a mild heart attack or whatever.
Yeah. He's like, who's speaking? This is your conscience. We haven't spoken in a while.
Yeah, that was good shit.
Paul Rudd is probably the perfect choice for Ant-Man.
Oh, dude, Paul Rudd is the unsung MVP of Endgame. 1,000%.
Absolutely.
He's so great. I love Paul Rudd.
Because I didn't really know how to feel about Ant-Man when I first saw his movie. But then as it goes along and as it progresses, I'm like, he's really sick.
Yeah, he is awesome. I remember watching it in the theaters and being like, that was fun as fuck. I loved it.
Just like, does Ant-Man, like, as a whole is just fun. Like,
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so then Tony fucking blows Bucky's arm off, which is brutal.
Because he's like about to rip the core of his suit out of his chest.
And he just blows the fucking arm completely off, which you seeing his reaction to it is brutal. So brutal. Yeah, he's like looking like
he's like completely in shock because like that's the second time he's lost an arm, and he's finally started to regain his memories from like his old life.
Yeah.
And obviously, like when he fell, he lost his arm initially.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't know how he survived that fall.
So there was like a theory because when Cap rescues him in the first Avenger, he's obviously on that table being operated on. So people say that maybe they started the super soldier serum kind of thing on him already, and that's how he survived the fall.
They definitely tried to recreate the Doctor's like super soldier serum from the first Avenger. Hydra tried to recreate it.
Yeah.
And that does make sense because why else would Bucky be in solitary confinement on an operating table?
Exactly.
Being operated on directly by Dr. Zola and the Red Skull.
Yeah, so it's everyone kind of thinks it's, they were starting the process. They just didn't quite get there by the time but that's maybe why he survived the fall.
That's definitely plausible because you see you see in a flashback in Civil War where they create the other 5 super soldiers for Hydra and Bucky's training them and then they all snap.
Yeah, which is fucking gnarly.
So like it's entirely possible that Bucky was made to be some variant of that super soldier.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he definitely was for sure.
And I think the reason he was more stable than the other ones is because he was so repeatedly brainwashed and just mentally just like broken apart.
Yeah. Yeah, he was completely fucked up.
The reason why all the other 5 super soldiers were so like hyper aggressive was because they had their brains still intact. And if you think back to what the Doctor said in the first Avenger, he's like, the serum amplifies what's already inside
of you.
Body. So what's good becomes great, and what's bad becomes worse.
Yep.
So all those people that got the serum variant from Hydra were like a KGB kill squad with like the highest number of kills in Hydra history.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And then obviously the fight ends. He goes to walk off with the shield, and he goes, that shield doesn't belong to you. My father made it, and he drops the shield, which fucking sucks.
Yeah, that was a big oof.
Yeah. And then it obviously ends with Tony being with War Machine and the best Stan Lee cameo probably ever.
Absolutely.
Tony Stank.
But yes, table for one for Mr. Stank right beside the bathroom.
Yes, yeah, and then obviously War Machine has a field day with that one.
Oh yeah, he's going like he just goes in. He's like, I'm never gonna let you live that one down.
Nope. And then the end credit scenes are Bucky and Cap in Wakanda, which shows Wakanda for the first time, even if it's a little glimpse. And they put him back on ice to help fix his mind. And then the second end credit scene is Spider-Man talking with Aunt May, and then you see the logo shoot up on the ceiling, which is like a nod to the comics and everything.
Spider-Man will return
Yep.
in blah 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 blah.
Yep, exactly. The famous lines that they put off in most of end of most movies, and that's Civil War.
Dude, I love going from Winter Soldier into Civil War because it takes what Cap was already like struggling with is like, well, who can I trust? What do I like? What do I know is real? What do I think is right?
Exactly.
And just expands on it because you know he can't sign those accords.
Yeah, of course not.
Like, and there's no way that Cap would like morally ever be able to like sanction something like that, and he says so. It's like,
yeah,
it's a really interesting thing to like keep in mind as you go from one movie to the next.
Yep. And then obviously at the end he rescues, I forgot to mention, he rescues like Falcon and Black Widow and all that from the raft.
That, like, I love the scene where Tony comes into the prison after they've already had their shit kicked in by each other and is like trying to play the good cop, and Clint is just roasting him.
Oh yeah. He says, well, it's funny because he calls him the Futurist, which he is called the Futurist in the comics, but also Robert Downey Jr. released an album back in the day called The Futurist.
Like an album?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's sick.
I've never listened to it, but I just know that fun fact.
I kind of want to go listen to it now.
There's another fun fact. In the airport scene, Clint is fighting with Black Panther, and he goes, "Oh, we haven't been introduced. My name is Clint." And then Black Panther says, "I don't care." And then in Endgame, when Clint is running with the Infinity Gauntlet, Black Panther goes, "Clint, pass it here," acknowledging his name that he does care. Genius.
It's sick little callbacks like that to the earlier MCU movies that it makes this universe for me. Like, I can't stress this enough, like the attention to detail and just how absolutely interwoven all of these movies are together. Obviously, it's the quintessential part behind the whole Marvel universe, but it's still so cool to watch in retrospect, especially like knowing what we know after everything has come out and then rewatching like these trilogies like this.
Yep.
It's so cool to see how everything plays out, knowing the information that you know.
Yeah. It's incredible. So we talked about this a little bit, but so obviously you're happy with Cap's arc ending in Endgame, of how it ends out. We've talked about how beautiful it was for him to go back and be with Peggy, and even in Endgame, he tells Natasha to get a life, and then she goes, "You first," and stuff like that. It's always been alluded to. Tony Stark has said it to him, "Why don't you go get a life?" Blah blah blah. Like, it all ends so perfectly.
Yeah, I don't think that there was a better way for Cap to have wrapped up his like current saga.
No, not at all.
Going back, because that's the one thing he wanted the entire time. And it's like when Sam was talking to him in the VA, and he's like, "Well, what do you want? What do you want to do?"
Yeah,
and he goes,
like,
"I don't know." But he knows all along. Like, he knows he's out of place. He knows he doesn't belong here, and he just wants to go back to where he belongs with the person that he belongs with.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. And then obviously leading, he gives Sam the shield. Obviously, it's comic accurate in a sense because Falcon does become Captain America. And it's weird because he takes the super soldier serum too and becomes strong. I don't think they're going to do that. I guess we'll see.
I was about to say, do you think, like, is it possible that he's going to use the super soldier serum himself?
So it could be possible because, like, I was leading into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Obviously, it's supposed to come out in August, but I don't know if that's going to change because I know they still have to finish shooting reshoots. I guess it depends because I know stuff is getting back to filming. So I know they were just wrapping it up. So maybe they still wrap it up and put it out in August to give us something between now and Black Widow in November. We'll see. I kind of hope so. We haven't got anything new in the MCU since last July. So
yeah, I would love to see something as soon as August, but I also don't want them to rush these movies.
Oh no, and this is even worse. It's a TV show, so it's like a 6-hour movie, or whatever it ends up being. If it's not 6 hours or whatever, it's a It's long form. It's the same budget as the movie. It's the same continuality. It's just in episodic format.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, because they're introducing U.S. Agent, which is going to be like the government's Captain America. So what's kind of come out is that this whole show is going to be about how America or the government isn't going to accept Sam as the new Captain America, and they're going to create their own Captain America. And I think it's leading to the Thunderbolts, which like the Thunderbolts they become like the government's owned Avengers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're usually bad guys. Like Venom is in it, Zemo's in it, Red Hulk, Abomination. I don't think U.S. Agent is ever in it, but it doesn't matter.
Just like a coagulation of like the anti-heroes, essentially.
Yeah, it could lead to Abomination coming back, and it could lead to Thunderbolt Ross becoming Red Hulk, because there has been seeds planted with that. Because obviously in the Incredible Hulk, he is the one who makes Abomination with it's like almost like a mix of the super soldier serum and what happened to Hulk, really.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Like
think
the gamma ray treatment and everything.
yeah, so and then he talks about in Civil War about how he had a heart attack, and you know how perspective happened. So I almost feel in a way that he has tinkered with this throughout the years, and this is why I think Falcon the Winter Soldier and Black Widow are going to play off each other, because I think they're both going to help lead to the Thunderbolts. Oh, Ghost is also in the Thunderbolts in some iterations, so they could bring her back to be in the Thunderbolts. Who knows? So I really think it's going to be like the government, aka Thunderbolt Ross, is going to form their own Avengers, because obviously there is really no Avengers.
No.
Thor's off in space with Guardians. Cap's gone. Iron Man's gone. Black Widow's gone. Hawkeye is who knows what's going to happen with Hawkeye, because
like
obviously
he went from being Hawkeye to Ronin, and then after Endgame, there's no reason for him to stick around anymore. So
yeah, well, he's getting his own show that's going to deal with Kate Bishop, which is who becomes like the next Hawkeye, pretty much, which I think is leading to the Young Avengers too. I think there's going to be a bunch of teams forming eventually. Like I think stuff will split off into different teams. Like I feel like we might get like a West Coast Avengers and then East Coast Avengers. Maybe the Invaders become a thing and shit like that. We'll see how it goes. But I think that's kind of where it's heading, where each team might tell its different story. And obviously they've alluded to Sword, which is basically Space Shield at the end credit scenes of Far From Home, seeing Nick Fury in space and stuff like that. So it's all this crazy shit that can go in all these different directions. But I feel like they might give this guy the super soldier theorem, U.S. agent. So maybe it kind of winds up that Sam gets it too. Who knows? I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. It's like and Zemo's coming back as the villain. Agent 13 is coming back. Like they're bringing all these old characters back in most of these shows, which is awesome. So I'm interested to see where they go with it, because I really have no idea, other than the main premise is going to be the government not accepting Sam as the next Captain America, even though Steve passed the torch down to him.
He was given the mantle by the man himself.
Right, exactly. But, it's almost like today in a way where the government has the say, not the people.
To reference Molotov solution, people shouldn't fear their government. The government should fear their people.
Yeah. Metal horns.
Look, I love Deathcore. It's sick.
Deathcore is sick. I agree.
Please fight me, internet.
I don't think anyone's going to fight you on that one.
No, dude.
So, which MCU project are you most excited for that's coming up?
I'm probably most excited for Black Widow.
Yeah?
Right now. I love Natasha's character. I love how they fleshed her out throughout the entire first phases 1 through 3 of the Avengers saga. It's just her character is just so multifaceted. There's so many different aspects to who Natasha Romanoff is.
Yeah, for sure.
And it all stems from her time, being indoctrinated as a KGB agent.
Yep.
So it's really cool to see how she deals with all of that in between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to see Taskmaster too.
Yes.
He's going to be so badass. I hope they don't kill him too, and they kind of keep him along. It would be sick for him to come back to be a part of the Thunderbolts too, because he is a
I,
fucking badass character.
I really love Black Widow's character, and I've always wanted to see her and Hawkeye like have their own like fleshed out like standalone movie or movies.
So obviously Black Widow is going to get her own, and Hawkeye's getting his own in form of TV show, but that's almost
he's
better.
also a quintessential character in Black Widow's life, so I highly doubt that they're going to leave him out of the Black Widow movie.
Yeah, like I said, I think they're going to show the Budapest thing, so obviously he would be involved with that.
God, I hope so.
Same. Everyone wants it, and one of the scenes in the trailer is Budapest. It's like obviously Budapest. So all signs are pointing to yes.
Love that. I can't wait for that movie. It's gonna be really sick.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
Super stoked on the next iteration of Spider-Man and the next Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, I think Doctor Strange might be it's high up on the list. That and WandaVision, which kind of are going to lead into each other. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see what madness those fucking shows are going to be. Well, shows and movie.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I can't.
I mean, like they set a high bar for themselves on the first Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So they have to one up themselves on the next one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they'll do it. Especially because Sam Raimi is fucking directing it. So sick. Yep. That's what Austin and I were talking about. We think that's going to be his redemption story for Spider-Man 3, because Spider-Man 3 wasn't really his fault. It was mostly Sony interfering and being like, no, you need to put in Venom. We don't want to do what you want to do kind of thing. And that's kind of what ruined and soured the whole thing. So now, obviously, the MCU has been very good at there's been some problems with some stuff. They made Joss Whedon put stuff in Age of Ultron that he didn't want to, but Age of Ultron was the pinnacle point of when Infinity Saga was a clear picture of, hey, we're going to the Infinity Stones. This is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. So they kind of had to meddle in a little with that, but it happens. But we've heard from James Gunn that in Guardians of the Galaxy, they pretty much said, hey, we need a Thanos cameo, and maybe you can put in a quick origin of the Infinity Stones. That's all you need to do. Whatever else is all you, which is amazing. Which I think Doctor Strange might have a few more limitations, but I really hope they let Sam Raimi do his thing, and I think they will. There's no way they're going to bring in a name like Sam Raimi, who hasn't really directed since Spider-Man 3, to be like, hey, we want you to come in, and he's one of the only like kind of well-known directors. Pretty much everyone else they brought in have kind of been new and up. Like the Russos directed TV. You know what I mean? They never really did a big budget movie. So, they're super well. Like Taika Waititi was an indie movie guy. James Gunn was an indie movie guy. They bring these guys in and make them superstars. And rightfully so, because they're smart and they're geniuses, and what they do is amazing and creative. So to bring in a big name like that, they have to have some sort of plan to be like, hey, do A, B, C, and D, but make this your fucking movie,
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what he does with that film.
Me too, because the flair and his taste and his style is awesome. So I'm super excited to see it with this kind of budget and this kind of world and concept that it's going off of. I can't fucking wait.
Yeah. And it's like the original Spider, like we were talking about, like the first like Sam Raimi Spider-Man was good. The second one was fucking phenomenal.
So good.
And the third one, pile of dog shit because of Sony interfering. But had he had his like creative direction and had that freedom, I feel like that would have been like such a high point for the original Spider-Man trilogy. And I personally, I love that trilogy.
It is a really good trilogy, and
despite how garbage the third one was, like I do love all those movies.
Yeah, Austin and I talked about this. The third movie ends super well, and with like a good not heart-wrenching, but it's like heartwarming how it ends. It ends in a good circle. It ends how it should have ended. It's just things in the middle cloud the rest of the ending.
Yeah, I mean? He's like getting to that ending was such a process.
Exactly. It's like it's a good movie covered in like shit, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. But
that sucks in and of itself. But then again, like the they happen for a reason. So like
Yeah,
I'm really
exactly.
excited to see how Sam Raimi comes in and just like is like you said, like redeems himself.
Yeah, yeah, same here. So how I usually end these, I do this little thing called Metalcore Minute, and it's pretty much just a minute, and you say everything you've been into. Obviously, most people have a lot more free time in their hands, so it's just like what bands you've been into, what games you've been into, what have you been watching, stuff like that. Just
Mm.
put you a little on the spot and see what you can come off on the top of your head of what you've been into.
All right. Start a freaking timer there, my guy.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go.
Okay, so currently I'm replaying Wars Jedi Fallen Order on Jedi Grandmaster, and I'm having the worst fucking time of my life doing it. Um, I've also really been into Lotus Eater from the UK as far as music goes.
Oh,
Like
hell
I
yeah.
cannot stop listening to that fucking band. I also can't stop listening to that new single "Pain Is Power" by Justice for the Damned out of Australia. Like super sick. Love like the music video for that song is incredible. Colin Jeffs is an incredible director. Love him. Um, I've just been sitting at home editing a bunch of music videos and stuff. So the Degrader video dropped. I have the music video I shot for the Willow dropped today. There are at least 3 more music videos like coming out soon that I've done recently. So that's another thing that I look forward to. And yeah, it's pretty much what I've been doing this whole time.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that Degrader video is sick.
Thank you.
I love that song too. That's a really good song.
The song is sick. I love the whole like swing section that comes in after
Yeah,
the intro breakdown.
yeah, it's fucking great. So before we get out of here, anything you want to plug?
Uh, Distinguisher just dropped a new line of merchandise today through Downright Merch. You can check it out at distinguishermerch.com. It'll redirect you to their site. All the items are up until mid-June as a pre-order, and anything ordered after that will ship between 3 and 5 days. We also have a bunch of new music and content in the works. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want everybody to be surprised. But this is the best music I've ever been involved with creating. This is the best art I've ever been involved with, and I can't stress that enough. The music is everything that I've wanted to play and write since I was 14.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear that shit. Seriously.
I mean, hey, I'll send you something. I'll send you pre-pro, but I'm not gonna send it to anybody else.
I mean, that's fair.
Got to do it one time.
Yeah, I get it. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. This was fun.
Thank you for having me, man. It was great.
Anytime,
Let's do it again.
All right, I'm down.
Cool.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
Later. Have a good day.
That's it for this one. Thanks for checking this out as always. We have some really cool guests coming on next week that I'm very excited about. As always, if you want to support the podcast, follow on social media at Metalcore Nerds, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to support monetarily, you can go to redcircle.com/metalcore-nerds/donations. Until next time, this is Metalcore Nerds.